Salute, salute, salute. Salute, salute. Make sure you double tapping that screen, man. It appears that Trump has withdrawn his support for the Green Republican lady. You know what I'm saying? Majority Green, I think is her name. Big time Trump supporter. The problem is, guys, she's supporting the release of the Epstein file. Shout out to the love. Appreciate it, appreciate it. And yeah, man, it's causing a rift in the Republican Party, man. They are most definitely at odds over this whole situation when it comes to the releasing of these Epstein files. Thank you. Trump kind of spoke on it briefly from Air Force One. We're going to get into that. Then we're going to hear an interview that Marjorie did, concerning this whole situation and what the rest of the mainstream media got to say about all of this, man. It is crazy, man. What do y'all think? Will we ever get the Epstein files, guys? The Congress is due to vote on it, whether to release the full files or not. I think they're about to come out, man. What's up, guys, man? Yeah, I think they're about to come out, guys, whether we like it or not. Check this out.
Too much. Too much. Okay?
Mr. President, what did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago. It's really what did he mean when he spent all the time with Bill Clinton, with the president of Harvard, who you know, that is Summers, Larry Summers, whatever his name is, and all of the other people that he spent time with. Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship for many years. But he also saw a strike because...
Now, y'all know these files, these emails have since came out. What's up, Jay Stevens? That basically says, one of them said that Trump absolutely knew about the girls, guys. These are from Epstein himself. They have released a lot of emails, guys. And Trump is talking about their relationship was very bad. But, these documents and these emails say something different. Epstein most definitely in one of those emails said that he knew Trump well enough to bring him down, guys. Yeah, man, this is crazy, y'all.
Very bad relationship for many years. But he also saw a strike because I was president. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break. You're going to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sir,
Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Go ahead.
Incriminating in the file,
Venezuela, sir.
Y'all heard him reference Bill Clinton and J.C. Morgan Bank, guys. Trump say, if y'all looking into me, look into everybody.
Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Go ahead.
Incriminating in the file,
Venezuela, sir.
Why not acting as a...
Quiet, Mickey.
On Venezuela, sir, you've had a lot of meetings on Venezuela. I know you can't tell us what your next steps will be, but can you say, have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do for, as far as action? For
I sort of have made up my mind, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind.
What do you say to some of your supporters who might not be excited about another foreign campaign?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't tell you what it is, but we made a lot of progress.
Y'all make sure y'all double tapping that screen, guys.
But we have a Mexico problem. We have a Colombia problem. It's coming into our country are greatly slowed, as you can imagine.
On the tariff rollback, sir, does this signal a change on your message?
Thank y'all for the gift.
No, I just want to bring down some of the foods. Look, for the most part, the foods, when we cut back a little bit on those tariffs, we'll get the price down. But they're not competitive in this country. Like tomatoes and bananas and things, we don't make them in this country. So there's no protection of our industries or our food products. So what we're going to do is we cut back. You'll see prices come down even lower. You have to understand, we've all suffered from the Biden prices, which were much higher than they are right now. But I'll be able to get them down even.
See, I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on this, what he had to say about Epstein, guys. Let's go back here, and then we're going to move along.
Okay?
Mr. President, what did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago.
Now, he's saying that he knew nothing about that when he says Jeffrey Epstein and those files that they just released, those emails, said Trump knew most definitely about the girls. Trump say he didn't know nothing about that.
Girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago. It's really, what did he mean when he spent all the time with Bill Clinton, with the president of Harvard, who you know, that is Summers, Larry Summers, whatever his name is, and all of the other people that he spent time with. Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship.
He said they had a bad relationship, guys.
But he also saw strength because I was president. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break. You're going to find out what did he...
He said he dictated a couple memos to himself. So he's saying that Epstein, you know, basically made those emails to himself, you know, to make him look bad. Y'all get those likes up. Double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. Or click the three dots, hit the thumbs up. Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is everything that I know regarding the Epstein situation with Trump, as well as Trump's situation with Marjorie Taylor Greene, guys, who is in favor of releasing those files.
Dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break. You're going to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sir,
Yeah,
if
Jennifer,
there's
go
nothing
ahead, go ahead.
incriminating in the
J.P. Morgan Chase, guys, and then he say, go ahead, and they kind of skip on to the tariff situation. But let's stay on the Marjorie Taylor Greene, as Trump withdraws his endorsement of her behind these files, allegedly.
President Trump has declared he is officially pulling his endorsement of MAGA firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia Congresswoman has been demanding the release of the Epstein files and has criticized the president for spending too much time abroad. The president, well, has apparently heard enough, posting on Truth Social overnight that all wacky Marjorie Taylor Greene does is complain, complain, complain.
I think that her constituents aren't going to be happy. Already, I have people calling me. They want to challenge her to a race in her district in Georgia. And, you know, that's too bad. She's lost a wonderful...
Hey, guys, let's get those likes up. Double tap that screen or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. He says the complainer. Yeah, man, it's crazy, y'all.
reputation. But when she says, don't go overseas, if I didn't go overseas, we might be in a war right now with China.
Meanwhile, President Trump is also upset with Congressman Thomas Massie, who also wants the Epstein files released. A Trump-aligned super PAC is spending $1 million on ads targeting the Kentucky Republican. Massie says his constituents understand his position.
When they're protecting pedophiles, when they are blowing our budget, when they are starting wars overseas, I'm sorry, I can't go along with that. And back home, people agree with me. They understand, even the most ardent Trump supporters understand.
And President Trump has now ordered the Justice Department to investigate companies and Democrats who he claims had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. And Attorney General Pam Bondi was quick to oblige, appointing the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan to handle that probe. Even though 4 months ago, the DOJ determined nothing in the Epstein files warranted further investigation. This week, the president's name turned up repeatedly in just released emails from the Epstein estate.
What did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago.
A lot of moving parts on this story. We get more now from CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez.
Good morning, Danny. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that federal prosecutors in New York are being tasked to launch yet another investigation of people associated with child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. This new investigation comes after President Donald Trump said that he was asking Bondi to investigate Epstein's ties to prominent Democrats. He named specific names, including former President Bill Clinton. Now, it's yet an extraordinary turn in a political mess that has consumed this White House for months. And it comes just days after Democrats had released emails from the late Epstein estate that mentioned Trump many times. Trump announced the directive in social media that accusing the Democrats of trying to revive attention to his past ties with Epstein and contending that they are, quote, using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try to deflect from their own disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures. Bondi responded to the president's social media post by thanking the president and saying that she'd have U.S. Attorney.
Hey guys, we got 294 people in the building and 29 likes. Let's double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. If you're on a mobile device, all you have to do is double tap your screen. If you have not done it, or click those three dots, hit the thumbs up. Let's get the likes up, guys.
Jay Clayton in Manhattan lead this new investigation. This is the same office that led the earlier investigations of Epstein and of Ghislaine Maxwell, who worked for Epstein and was convicted of charges that she aided in the trafficking of girls. We should note that the Justice Department this summer did an assessment of documents that's in their possession, and they determined that there were no additional defendants that could be charged with crimes associated with Epstein. And this new investigation also means, though, that Congress will likely have to wait much longer for any documents to be released, because there's an effort right now gaining steam in the House to force the release of those documents. But during an ongoing investigation, the Justice Department generally doesn't release investigative files out of concern that it would harm any possible prosecutions. Danny?
All right, Evan Bettis, thank you very much for that reporting. For more on this, let's discuss the Epstein case and where it all may be headed with Stephen Newcomb. He's a congressional reporter for Axios. Stephen, thanks so much for waking up early to talk about a lot of developing things that happened overnight. Let's start here. This breakup between President Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump calling Greene a lunatic. It's all about Epstein, of course. What do you make of this?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. It certainly is about Epstein, but I actually think that the break between the president and Congresswoman Greene at this point is about more than just the Epstein files.
No. It's all about the Epstein files, in my opinion. She most definitely went to a press conference with Epstein victims and was most definitely vocal about releasing those files, guys. She said she is on the side of the victims and she wants the truth to be revealed, guys. Double tap that screen if you have not on your mobile device. That's how you hit the like button, or click those three dots. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you are new.
I mean, if you go back to the middle of the shutdown, she was criticizing the president and Republicans for not having a plan to end the shutdown, for House Republicans not being in Washington, not having a health care plan to sort of counter what Democrats were proposing. So it's sort of all encompassing. But yeah, the breakup, it seems like this weekend has reached a new fever pitch, and Congresswoman Greene seems not to be in the good graces of President Trump anymore.
What's up, boss
That's
lady?
well said. It really does feel like it's been a slow burn, certainly over the course of the shutdown, as you noted. What's interesting, Stephen, is we've seen this pressure campaign, though, ramp up this past week against Republicans who are supportive of releasing the Epstein files. We think of Lauren Boebert, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Greene said in her tweet last night, quote, "And of course he's coming after me. Hard to make another example to scare all the other Republicans before next week's vote to release the Epstein files. He's coming after me hard." That's what she's saying. Forgive me there. I guess my question to you, Stephen, is do you think this will scare any Republicans who are thinking about voting to release the Epstein files? Do you think this will scare them off from that vote next week?
It at least has not, at this point, it did not scare them from taking their names off the signature list of the discharge petition, which they needed to sort of circumvent House Republican leadership and Speaker Mike Johnson to get this to the floor. So we'll have to see next week if there is any change in the posture. But at least when the president was sort of making these calls, and in some cases even bringing, Congresswoman Boebert to the White House last week, it did not get them to take their names off of that discharge petition. And now that Congresswoman Grijalva, who was sworn in last week, signed on to that petition, those signatures are frozen. There's nothing that the president or House Republican leadership can do to get them to take their names off or stop a vote from happening. So now you're sort of at the point where, you're trying to whip no votes from Republicans, and we'll have to see if the president and the speaker are able to get any more Republicans on their side.
Last question for you, Stephen, on the Epstein story in particular. It seems like President Trump now going on the offense with this story, telling the DOJ to investigate Epstein's ties to other high-profile figures and Democrats. Isn't that just going to keep this subject in the news?
Certainly, and I think you've even heard, some reporting this week that there's Republicans who have told the president that he's getting bad advice on the Epstein sort of saga, and yeah, this is going to prolong it. I do think that it being an active investigation and not being able to release records because it's an active investigation is probably a feature and not a bug of this strategy. But yeah, the pressure campaign is going to continue to go on, and even if it gets through the House and the House passes it, that pressure campaign is just going to move to the Senate to put pressure on Senate Republicans, and particularly Senate Majority Leader John Thune to put that bill on the floor in the Senate if it ends up passing the House.
All right, well, before we go, I also want to make sure to ask you about healthcare and the shutdown. Meanwhile, the shutdown ending feeling like a million years ago now. Senate Democrats said they got Senate Republicans to promise a vote on healthcare, on these Affordable Care Act credits. Are we going to see Democrats continue to put pressure on Republicans, though, to keep this promise?
Well, certainly, and I think the first thing that they need to do is negotiate amongst each other about what that product looks like next month that they get a vote on the Senate floor. We reported last night that those conversations will include Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Ron Wyden, who is the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, including some of the Democrats, the moderate Democrats that were involved in negotiations to reopen the government with Republican leaders earlier this month. So, they need to put together a package that they can get support, not just from their entire caucus, but, they need the 14 Republican votes that it's going to take to pass this through the Senate in December. So they need to also start outreach to the Republican colleagues to see if this is something against all odds that they can get past the Senate.
All right, so that was a little bit on the shutdown, which is the government is reopened right now, but they most definitely said that Trump removed his endorsement, basically for Marjorie Taylor Greene. A lot of people are saying that's because she wants the Epstein files released, guys. Here is a little bit more on this situation.
Of his administration for Marjorie Taylor Greene, we are now in the middle of witnessing a major blow up between the two of them. One that a lot of people probably predicted would or did not expect would ever happen, with the president attacking her and her now calling the president, saying that he is lying about her and that she believes this is all over him trying to bully other Republicans into not voting in favor of that discharge petition on the Epstein files this week. I wonder what you make of what's playing out.
And herself, according to the mainstream media, she most definitely feels like this is all over her endorsing basically to release the Epstein files.
It's like they put truth serum in the MAGA water cooler. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump are both condemned to tell the truth about the other. Everything he says is right. They are narcissists. Marjorie Taylor Greene is right that Donald Trump has no domestic agenda except to harm ordinary people, and Donald Trump is right that Marjorie Taylor Greene is crazy. So it's useful information all around. But what I worry most about this and the Epstein files and all the things that Trump has tried to keep control of, escaping his control, is he has one big distraction in his hand, and I fear he may be about to deploy it. We are seeing in the Caribbean right now the largest buildup of U.S. naval forces in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's no plan. There's no authorization by Congress. There are no regional partners. It is not a war that should be fought in this way at this time. But one thing it would do is change the subject.
So you're worried that he could take action on a foreign policy move to distract from what's happening in Washington?
Yeah, I think that explains a lot of his foreign policy operations, but the forces are there. They've been pulled away from other theaters where they might be needed. They're building up to something. Again, they have no authorization, they have no allies, they have no goals. But boy, would it change the subject, and boy, does Donald Trump right now need a subject change.
Yeah, and we've seen what's been playing out. Obviously, the president was saying tonight he didn't know if he'd take that step. He wasn't sure. We know he's been briefed on options there. But on this, in and of itself, do you think that is the reason he's criticizing Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, is because he doesn't want other Republicans coming out in what, we've told could be a huge snowball effect next week when Speaker Mike Johnson actually puts this on the floor, that a lot of Republicans could end up bucking the White House and voting for this?
I think he genuinely can't help himself. I don't know that Donald Trump has fully formed strategic plans. He has a lot of impulses. He's also testing the old magic. after one of the things that has happened after the elections in New Jersey and Virginia and elsewhere, and Georgia maybe most significantly, because there was an all-state race that Republican candidates lost, is a lot of Republicans have to be thinking, what about my future? I used to think the greatest hazard to my future might be that Donald Trump would criticize me, but maybe actually now he can't help me and might even hurt me. And that's a little bit of discipline lost. And Marjorie Taylor Greene may be the test case where a lot of less inflammatory Republicans are saying, if she gets away with this, we can all get away with it.
Yeah, and she's obviously someone who has been a huge advocate of his and very loyal to the president, especially after January 6th, when everything happened. And obviously, no one can forget Biden's...
She's not a good actor. I mean, she's not a hero of the Republic, but she is somebody who may be just crazy enough to actually believe the things that Donald Trump says without believing them.
So a lot has happened tonight. Buckle up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is learning what it feels like to be on Trump's bad side. She has been one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the full release of the Justice Department's investigative files on Jeffrey Epstein. And now President Trump tonight is unendorsing. He is withdrawing his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene and writing on Truth Social that all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. And then he added that I can't take a ranting lunatic's call.
Says all she do is complain, 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 guys. Could this really be over the Epstein files, guys? Double tap that screen if you're just now getting here. That's how you hit the like button. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen, guys. We need the likes over 100. If you're not on a mobile device, click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. That's another way to hit the like button, guys. Let's get the likes all the way up. We got 700 people in the building, only got 79 likes. Make it make sense. Double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes all the way up. We need them past 100. We need some more, y'all, to double tap that screen, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna give y'all everything that I'm hearing, everything that I've seen on this Trump Marjorie Taylor Greene situation as it pertains to the Jeffrey Epstein files. Is getting ready to come up for a vote, guys. She says that Trump is trying to intimidate the Republicans that want the files released into not wanting the files to be released, guys. 4 more on that like button, man. Double tap that screen. There's more than enough of y'all in here to get the likes up. Let's get those likes up. Double tap your screen of your mobile device or click those 3 dots. Hit that thumbs up, man. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Somebody say bye-bye, Orange Man. Bubba had old ketchup ear dropping. Oh, my goodness, man. What are you talking about? This is 100% over her support of releasing the Epstein files. I can believe it, guys. A lot of people feel that way, man. You know, a lot of people are saying, hey, man, this is all because of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Every day. There was a lot there. So you can go to, and then talk about a lot. Then MTG fired back.
These are text
with
messages.
Screenshots.
I'm guessing of what Trump sent to her. You know, I can't blow it up so we can see them all and still keep it centered. Hold on, let me put them on the screen real quick so that y'all can see some of them. You know what I'm saying? These are, I guess, between her and Trump, guys. Yeah, man, it's crazy, man. This is wild, man. And she most definitely feels herself that all of this is going on because of the Epstein files, guys. Wow.
Of text messages that she claims where she claims that Trump is lying and that she did not call him, also saying that it is astonishing, really, how hard he is fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out. She argued that she has been one of Trump's strongest supporters, but that she doesn't, quote, worship or serve Donald Trump. On top of unendorsing, he actually said that he would support anyone who would be primarying her in the upcoming election. Who wants to take this one on?
Well, I can tell you that is not unusual in politics. Political romances are often short-lived, and she has been critical of him not only about the Epstein files, but about his involvement in foreign affairs, and I don't mean with women. I mean in various parts of the world.
You said it, no.
Just to clear the table on that one. And so it's not surprising that they have had a breakup of sorts after all. He didn't give her a ring, he just supported her for a little while.
Listen, this fire is spreading. I mean, right, it started off talking about Epstein in the beginning.
Then during the shutdown, she was one of the few Republicans that correctly identified Donald Trump's unwillingness to deal with the ACA subsidies and lower healthcare costs for Americans as being one of the reasons why the shutdown
Yeah,
occurred.
she was very outspoken about that.
Now she's talking about foreign policy. This is not going away. Whatever is going on between them seems to only be heating up, and I think the rest of us should get the popcorn.
I think I'm here for it.
And a war with words, sorry, Scott, a war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe she has.
Shout out to Nurse P for being a member for the last 13 months. She said, I got my popcorn ready for this squabble, but I think Agent Orange is going to lose this battle. This is about to get ugly already, Nurse P. Shout out to you for being a member for 13 months.
Bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an
She
example
could
of
put up
anyone beating Donald
really hard?
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters.
I hear me out there. I wonder what just happened. Can y'all hear me? I shouldn't be spinning anymore. Can y'all hear me?
A war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe
I don't know what
she
happened,
has
guys.
the bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an
She
example
could
of
put up-
anyone beating Donald Trump at this game?
Never. This is his game, and he's great at it. And she's barking up a tree that she's going to fall on her really hard.
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters. She's one of them. Thomas Massey in Kentucky is another one. Rand Paul, my home state senator, he takes on Trump, although they profess to be Trump supporters. In this case, I think he had the order out of order. I trace all this back to his decision, the righteous decision to strike Iran. She was against it. So were some of the people who occupy that wing of the party. He defied them. And since that time, they all seem to be stridently picking at him on this issue or that. And then, of course, everybody knows in Washington, Miles, you know, the fastest way to get in front of a television camera if you're a Republican is to come out and crap on Donald Trump. And so that is what...
Hold up, y'all. Let me unzoom it in for y'all. Hold on real quick. It's going to take a second. I don't know what... All right, are we zoomed out now? Are we better? Can y'all see everything? You know, is it still zoomed in or did it get better, guys? Let me know. Is it still zoomed in or can you see both guys on the panel? Is it still zoomed in or can y'all see both guys on the panel? All right, hold on, y'all. Hold on. Let me get this right. I don't know what's going on. Hold on real quick. What about now? All right, what about now? Hold on. I got to... Nope, it's still the same. Hold on real quick. Still zoomed in. All right, we're just gonna have to run it like this for a second, guys. I know it's not as clear as it was, but I don't know why I keep on doing that, guys. Double tap that screen, get the likes up. You know what I'm saying? We still in the building. Let's go.
What she is
But
doing.
you know, Scott,
that is what she is doing.
I
because
trace
she
it
is
back
mad at him
further than that, Scott.
over these issues, and that's what happened.
Scott, I trace it further back than that. I trace it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast. Because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides. By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party, that's why members of his
He's running the executive against him. Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
For the same reasons you predicted he shouldn't. For the same reasons, Scott, you said he violated his oath and he should never be back in that office. That's why I'm upset for the man being in the Oval Office.
I happily voted for him 3 times.
I know that.
The alternative.
Question. If you've been sticking with us this whole time, and as soon as I come back on, you tap back in, Why come you haven't hit the like button, guys? That's crazy. Over 300 people came back in the building after I got everything fixed. And it still ain't hitting the like button. Let's double tap that screen, get the likes up, guys. Click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. Evidently, you are as interested as we are as of why Trump is not choosing to endorse Taylor Marjorie Greene anymore. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the love. I see all those gifts out there. Shout out to y'all. Let's continue to get those likes up. And if you new over here, subscribe to the channel, man.
It was terrible. And a lot of your friends were shocked.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends would have been shocked at you trying to subvert the elected president of the United States, which you did.
Well, I proudly did. I proudly
Some
said
mid-level
to the
staffer
country,
substituting his
who
judgment
this
for the
man
elected
was.
president of the United States.
Well,
Good
Scott,
luck,
I would have
brother.
loved to have seen you stand up
Good
to
luck.
it.
Good luck.
Back to FGG. Is it the sign of a changing tide? Is it the sign, or is it a singular one back and forth between one Republican who is getting into a fight with Donald Trump? Or do you think there is a possibility that it is the beginnings of Republicans seeing past the Donald Trump era?
The short answer is that we don't know.
Because you've got like Thomas Massey saying exactly that. Like, your vote on this discharge petition is going to outlast Donald Trump's time here. So you need to consider that when you make your decision.
But if you pay attention, what we see is that last week the president got his clock.
All right, so this is what's finna happen, y'all. I'm finna try to correct it one more time so we can get it back in HD. So give me a second real quick. If it don't work this time, oh well. All right, we should be good now. I think we good now. Yeah, we back in HD. You know what I'm saying? We should be good now. Can everybody see and hear me clearly? Yes. All right, bet.
Clean in an election. All the Republicans got their clock clean in an election. This week, we see what's happening with the Epstein files. So next week, we're going to see them take a vote. And if we see a bunch of Republicans defect on the Epstein files, I think what we're seeing is the real testing of the waters to find out whether or not you can oppose Donald Trump and still get elected. When we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Fixter, why you down there being a hater? We most definitely in HD right now. Good with your good hating self. Let me tell you something. If you don't want to watch the ghetto news, wait till the regular news come on. Let's get Fixter right up out of here. You know what I'm saying? He's a certified hater. You know what I'm saying? Congratulations, Fixter. You just got deported. We'll holler at you.
the one thing we haven't talked about yet is her fundraising prowess. And according to sources, she is the most popular fundraiser in the Republican Party other than Donald Trump.
This prediction about no one's going to care about this.
I was asking it a question. I wasn't predicting.
No, you said people were somebody said that this was going to outlive.
Tom Massey.
The prediction that this was going to outlive. I totally disagree with that. I think right now more people.
And this is not ghetto news. It's trap news. Get it right. Don't be a hater all your life. This is trap news. You know what I'm saying? Not ghetto news.
Are worried about whether they can watch ESPN on YouTube TV tomorrow than they care about this. And that's certainly going to be true in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years.
So
Hold on, but what they do care about, they do care about the fact the president's sort of breaking everything, right? They see a hole in the White House right now. I was in Detroit last weekend for an event, and it was the #1 thing people came up to me, the scholarship dinner, to ask about. Is it okay for the president to tear down the White House without anybody's permission?
That was the #1 thing?
That was the #1 thing that people brought up unprovoked to find out about.
I keep hearing this over and over again. It's like, no one cares about this because they only care about that.
You know what they care about? They can't buy a house.
That they can't. They care about
houses
affordability.
unaffordable and that food costs too much. But they don't care about the White House. The fact is, a president who can't model the White House.
Many people care about the White House.
That's ridiculous.
Every visitor.
Many Americans care about the White House.
Make major
You don't care about the White
decisions,
House.
can't remodel a room in the White House.
Remodel it. He tore it down.
Tomato tomato. In the middle of a
I couldn't
government
tear down my
shutdown.
garage without getting a permit from the city.
And that's
He
what
can tear it down.
But let me ask you this: people don't like jobs.
We most definitely cover a majority of places for the news, sir, not just CNN. While you come in, you just seen CNN want to put CNN, LOL. You know what I'm saying? We cover multiple sources. Anyway, we've heard everybody else speak for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's hear her speak for herself, guys. She most definitely did a news press conference where she expressed her views and what she feels like is going on with Trump and his unendorsing of her.
President cut ties. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, thank you so much for being here. As you just heard, and I know you saw, the president says he's withdrawing support for you, encouraging primary challengers. You were one of his biggest supporters. What do you think happened here?
Well, Dana, thank you for having me on, and that is true. I stood with President Trump when virtually no one else did. Campaigned all over the country, spent millions of my own dollars helping him get elected, and I think that's incredibly important. And I do support him and his administration, and I support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful. However, I have something in my heart that I think is incredibly important for our country, and that is to end the toxic fighting in politics. And this has been going on for years, and it has divided our country, split up friends and families, neighbors, and it's not solving our problems. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor, and that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
What do you think happened? What do you think is the reason for this?
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein files, and that is
She said it
shocking.
herself, guys.
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein
She said
files.
it's the Epstein
and that is-
files.
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein files, and that is shocking. And, you know, I stand with these women. I stand with rape victims. I stand with children who are in terrible sex abuse situations. And I stand with survivors of trafficking and those that are trapped in sex trafficking. And I will not apologize for that. I believe the country deserves transparency in these files. And I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong. And so I'm standing with the women, and I will continue to do my small part to get the files released.
You said on X yesterday, quote, "It's astonishing really how hard he's fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out, and that it really makes you wonder what is in those files." Are you suggesting there's something in the Epstein files that President Trump does not want Americans to see?
His name.
Well, I think that's the part that has so many people confused, is that the women themselves that I have talked to have over and over again said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Quite a few of them even told me they voted for him. And those are...
Hey, guys, double tap that screen. Let's get the likes up. We need them past 200. We got 836 people in the building, 176 likes. The likes are way light, guys. Let's double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, so click those three dots. Hit that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene in her own words, basically saying that Trump withdrew his support of her. She believes it's because of the Epstein files, guys. Let's get those likes up. 16 more people on that like button. Double tap the screen of your mobile device or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. Let's get those likes up. It helps out the channel, guys, as I give y'all everything that I've been seeing around about this whole situation with Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Shout out to everybody that hit that like button.
For the women I would like to see in the Oval Office with support, I would like to see all of the women there with support. I have no idea what's in the files. I can't even guess, but that is the questions everyone is asking, is why fight this so hard?
Well, before this blow up, you sort of alluded to this just now. You said you were confident the president wouldn't be implicated. Are you still confident of that?
I'm listening to the women. Those are the ones that are saying that he did nothing wrong. Virginia Giuffre even said under oath that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and she wrote it in her book. So I'm continuing to listen to the women, and I think their voices should be the loudest.
The president said the reason that you have been critical of him is not necessarily Epstein, but because he pushed you not to run for the Senate or for governor in Georgia. How and when did he do that?
Well, that is absolutely not true. Actually, I never had a conversation at all with the president about running for Senate or running for Georgia. And those were decisions I came to on my own, that I don't want to have anything to do with the Senate. I think the past 2 months of the government shutdown should have shown America exactly why I would never want to be there. I think it's a very broken institution that serves the uniparty and doesn't serve the American people and how they vote. And I decided that I didn't want to run for governor this cycle either. I very much want to do the job that I'm in. Everyone else says I'm running for something, but all I want to do is serve Georgia's 14th district. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
So he said it pretty explicitly. Are you saying he's lying, or did he at least get that message to somebody on your political team instead?
I'm not sure. That is untrue what he said. I don't know if he's being fed wrong information. I honestly have no idea in that area, but it is absolutely factually not true. Nor have I called him, and White House logs would prove that. His own cell phone records would prove it. I have not been calling the president, but I did post messages that I had sent to him, and that was to protect, get involved. This is important. The American people want the Epstein files released. And, I've stood with the president. I have disagreed with him at times, Dana, and I'm allowed to do that. I think that's the most important thing we can do as Americans. And I'm urging my party. I've been putting massive pressure on my party and our speaker to pass the agenda that the American people vote for. That's the agenda that I fought for. Those are the campaign promises I made. And I can disagree with the president at times, particularly this past Monday on the Marines' 250th anniversary, when he honored the new Syrian president, who is an Al-Qaeda terrorist and was wanted by our government for years with a $10 million bounty up until March of this year. I very much am against that. I think that was very hurtful to the great men and women who served over in the Middle East and were sent there, and many of them that were killed and injured and live with PTSD to this day from fighting Al-Qaeda. So there's things I disagree with, and I am allowed to do so.
Well, do you think he represents the MAGA movement as he once did?
Well, what the American people voted for with MAGA was to put the American people first and stop sending foreign aid and stop being involved in foreign wars. They very much deserve to be put first. Cost of living is far too high. Health insurance is completely out of control. And those are two issues I've been very vocal on for months and months now, long before Republicans were shocked when those big losses came on this past Tuesday's election. So I think that the American people deserve to be put first. That's what Make America Great Again meant to me. And I think that President Trump can do that if he refocuses his effort. And I think that's what I want to see. I think that's what the country wants to see. Even if he's attacking me, I do want him to be successful for the American people.
So sounds like you're saying that he is not representing the MAGA movement that he started right now.
I can say that promoting H-1B visas to replace American jobs, bringing in 600,000 Chinese students to replace American students' opportunities in American colleges and universities, those are not America First positions. And continuing to really travel all over the world doesn't help Americans back at home. I really, and I said this to him, and I will say it out loud, I would love to see Air Force One be parked and stay home, and there be nothing but a constant focus in the White House on a domestic agenda that helps the American people once and for all.
Congresswoman, you posted on X that President Trump is, with his comments, fueling a, quote, hotbed of threats against you. Obviously, any threats to your safety are completely unacceptable. But we have seen these kinds of attacks or criticism from the president at other people. It's not new. And with respect, I haven't heard you speak out about it until it was directed at you.
Dana, I think that's fair criticism, and I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, and it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions, and I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another, and we need to figure out a new path forward that is focused on the American people, because as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we have far more in common than we have differences. Yeah. And we need to be able to respect each other with our disagreements.
So just to put a button on this, you regret the things that you have said and posted in the past, the Facebook post that was taken down of you in 2020 holding a gun alongside the squad, encouraging people to go on the offense against the socialists, liking a tweet of somebody calling for the execution of Nancy Pelosi and former President Obama, just examples?
Well, Dana, as you know, and many people know, I addressed that back in 2021. And of course, I never want to cause any harm or anything bad for anyone. So that was addressed back then, and I very much stand by my words I said then, and I stand by my words today. I think America needs to come together and end all the toxic, dangerous rhetoric and divide. And I'm leading the way with my own example, and I hope that President Trump can do the same.
Okay, so on that, I do want to ask you about something you posted just yesterday on X. You questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the President of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that that is the case?
No, I simply... No.
Well, that's crazy. Boy, they try to tie a lot of stuff to Israel. Now Israel is trying to suppress the Epstein files, allegedly. Wow.
Simply asked. No, I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand.
I know why they said that, because allegedly Epstein had ties to Israel. That's why they said
the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
Absolutely.
That I'm questioning that government in particular, and questioning any other foreign government.
Okay, when you're talking about lowering the rhetoric, which is important for everybody to hear from you and all of our elected officials, but there is some concern, a lot of concern among Republicans about the rise of anti-Semitic hard-right figures in your movement, especially after Tucker Carlson hosted white nationalist Nick Fuentes on his podcast, didn't question Fuentes about his vile language or views. You did speak at a conference hosted by Fuentes back in 2022. You were criticized, and you said then that you didn't know about his views. Well, Fuentes talked to Carlson about that in the interview. Listen to what he said. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I defend every single person's free speech rights. I think that's incredibly important. So I don't apologize for that. And I don't believe in canceling people. And I think it's important for
Thank you,
people like
K-Cell.
Tucker Carlson and yourself to interview everyone. I don't believe in trying to cancel someone by refusing to interview them and question them. And
Shout out to my boy Pressure for becoming a member. Once again, grabbing his work shirt. Appreciate you, big dog.
I did speak at his conference back in 2022. However, I don't know Nick Fuentes. He's someone I've never exchanged text messages with or phone calls, but I did speak at his conference. That was the first time I had met him that day, and that was it. So, but I did watch the interview. I watched the full interview with Tucker, and I admire him for interviewing many people as well as exposing a lot of powerful information.
I hear what
that
you're
he
saying.
does on his show.
I hear what you're saying about free speech. I mean, count me as guilty as
Shout out to my boy SRT Ken for being a member for the last 12 months. He said, you're in some change. Let's go. Appreciate you, big dog.
Voting of free speech. There's free speech, and then there is hate speech. And this is a man invited on a really prominent conservative show who said, even during that interview, he had a problem with, quote, organized Jewry, and he wasn't challenged on it. In the past, he has denied the Holocaust, called Adolf Hitler effing cool, talked about the fact that he thought Jim Crow was just fine, and on and on. So again, there's free speech, and then there's just hateful language and sentiments.
No problem, Sandra.
Well, Dana, again,
We most definitely welcome all thoughts and opinions. You know, all we ask is that you be respectful to the other people whose opinions aren't like yours. You know, it may be some people that disagree, but most definitely let us know what you think. You know, just keep it respectful to myself as well as the other people that's in the chat that may not think exactly how you think.
I told you on this interview that I'm committed to ending the toxic politics, and I think
Shout out to Yana for being a member for the last 14 months. She's saying hit that like button. Shout out to Pressure. He just showed y'all he been there for 12 months. He said, my bad, fam. I forgot to put my work suit on. I already appreciate you, big dog. Let's go.
I don't want to have anything to do with it. You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that. I myself am not anti-Semitic. I have never criticized the Jewish people or said anything about them in particular. I am critical.
Shout out to Miss Pooh Bear for being a member for the last 14 months. She says, welcome to Everything News. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, man. Absolutely. Shout out to Miss Belinda for being a member for the last 10 months. She said, hello, Mahel, mods, and chat. Shout out to y'all, man. I most definitely appreciate each and every one of y'all for keeping those memberships, man. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate the support
Of the government of Israel, and I can criticize any government I want to in the entire world as well as our own. And a lot of the times I'm criticizing our own government for failing the American people. And I think that needs to be the focus, and that's the most important thing people care about, is being able to afford groceries, housing, health insurance, and having a good quality of life.
Yeah, and I hear you saying you're not anti-Semitic, and you've said it before, and you know, some of the posts that you have put up, which you have apologized for, certainly have tropes in them that have been used historically against Jews. But I do want to end this conversation with a question to you. And that is, do you see a situation where you and President Trump can make up? And if not, do you think you have a future in the GOP?
Well, I certainly hope that we can make up. And there's, you know, again, I can only speak for myself. I'm a Christian, and one of the most important parts of our faith is forgiveness, and that's something I'm committed to. That's why I can easily come on your show that is watched all over the world, and I can say things I'm sorry for, and I can try to set an example of how I think we should move forward as Americans. And so, of course, on my end, I believe in that, and I certainly hope to see that happen.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor.
All right, so we got to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene in her own words, guys, basically say that she believes that Trump stopped endorsing her behind her support of releasing the Epstein files. We also heard her say that with him saying derogatory things about her, it could most definitely, you know, put her life in danger, guys. Well, she has most definitely reported to the mainstream media that she is receiving threats, guys. Let's dig a little bit deeper into this entire situation.
Speakers are back, and they have a lot coming up. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is going to join us now. Majority Leader Scalise, it has been a while since President Trump dished out one of his signature nicknames. One of your members, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just got two. Marjorie Trader Greene and Marjorie Taylor Brown, because the president says green grass turns brown when it begins to rot. What's going on with these two?
Wow.
Well, you can see that they've had some disagreements, and, President Trump from time to time has disagreements with people, and he's not shy to talk about it. And you've seen over time he's made up with some people too. But, one of the things President Trump does is, he tells people what he really thinks, but he also talks about what it's going to take to get this country back on track. And President Trump has done phenomenal things to address the problems that he inherited when Joe Biden was president. We saw so many problems around the world. We had high inflation, high interest rates, high energy costs here at home. And President Trump started day one to fix those problems. And he's not going to slow down. And I know he has disagreements even with some of his friends along the way, but he's not going to be deterred. He is working tirelessly. You see him in the White House.
Hey guys, let's take time to get 40 more people on that like button. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device. That's how you hit the like button. Or you can click those three dots, hit that thumbs up, guys. Support the channel by at least hitting the like button. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen. If not, click those three dots, hit the thumbs up, guys. And make sure that you guys are subscribing to the channel if you are new. I appreciate y'all hitting that like button. It most definitely helps out the channel. Let's get the likes up, guys. We at 276, 282. Continue to double tap that screen, guys, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. If you have not hit that like button, that's how you hit it. It most definitely helps out the channel, and I appreciate the support, guys. Get the likes up.
From a trip overseas, I saw him the day after he came from the Middle East signing historic peace agreements in the Middle East, and the next day he's at the White House, continuing to do great things here at home. So this is a president that doesn't rest, doesn't stop fighting for the American people.
And the president has told us that he's mad. Marjorie Taylor Greene voted with Democrats to try to force a vote about releasing more Epstein files. Why do you think it is that your Democratic colleagues were so quiet about Jeffrey Epstein for the entire length of the Biden presidency?
Well, it's a point of hypocrisy that we've brought up many times, Peter. We actually brought a motion for unanimous consent the other day to bring up all the Epstein files. And guess who objected on the House floor? It was Democrats. And so, this idea that the Democrats won it, they hid the Epstein files for 4 years. In fact, some of the things you saw leaked just the other day were things that we House Republicans got out through Jamie Comer's Oversight Committee. We had the estate of Epstein finally subpoenaed, and we released a lot of that data. One of the things it showed, Peter, was a Democrat member of Congress texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing, trying to get Epstein's advice for how to ask questions during a hearing. I don't hear the mainstream media talking about that. That just came out like 2 days ago, and it's because of Republican oversight on those Epstein files that the Democrats sat on for 4 years.
A different subject, but something that everybody watching wants, that would be free money. The White House says $2,000 checks could be on the way. The money would come from tariffs and not the budget.
Shout out to Lalizi for being a member for the last 13 months. She say Sidewalk Gang, absolutely. Shout out to you. Thank you for the support. Shout out to all my moderators, man. My Sidewalk members, man. I appreciate y'all.
They just need one thing first.
Well, it's something that will require legislation, but if you look at how much tariff revenue has been coming in, then there would actually be enough room to cover those checks and not go into the rest of the budget. So yeah, there would be enough money to pay for the $2,000 checks.
So, before the $2,000 checks, they just need your permission in Congress. Are we going to see a vote for these checks?
Well, there's a robust debate over what's going to happen with the tariff revenue. One of the things, Peter, is getting an actual quantification of it, exactly how much money has come in from tariffs. A lot of us don't think it's going to be long-term because you see President Trump reaching new trade agreements so that we have lower tariffs or ultimately zero tariffs is the goal. because you get a fair trade with countries that never used to treat us fairly. So many countries took advantage of us. President Trump finally has those countries treating us fairly. So one point of a lot of discussion was to use that tariff revenue to reduce the deficit. And I think everybody would agree, reducing the deficit lowers interest rates, it lowers inflation.
I'm with you, Ballin. Yeah, forget that. Send me my 2K ASAP. I most definitely can use it. Go ahead and send me that 2K. I want it.
All of that money that Washington borrows off the table, and no longer borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars in this case, would actually be good for the entire economy and put more money in the pockets of families who are struggling in terms of lower inflation and lower interest rates for people that want to go buy.
Shout out to Liars Everywhere for that $10. Says, get the likes up, guys. Double tap that screen if you have not. Most definitely, or you can click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, guys. We should be well over 300 likes by now. Let's double tap that screen if you have not. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen or click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner and hit the thumbs up button. Appreciate you.
A home, buy a new home, first-time home buyers. All of those things are things that we have been actively debating in Congress.
And there is another
Shout
idea
out
to
to
try to put
Ireland
money
in the
back in people's
building.
pockets. Some of your members are kicking around legislation that would do what we just talked to Dr. Oz about. It would stop sending money to insurance companies. It would start sending money to patients, to people, to spend how they wish. How quickly might we see that?
Yeah, real soon. And look, Dr. Oz touched on a lot of important things that we're working with the Trump administration on. And, you know, if you go back to, and Dr. Oz alluded to this, when we were moving the working families tax cut through Congress, we put a provision in that bill called cost sharing reductions, which is, I'll translate it in English. It was scored to lower premiums for families, healthcare premiums by double digits, over 12% lower premiums in healthcare. It passed the House. It was in the bill, passed the House, and it was Senate Democrats who fought to get that removed because Senate Democrats do not want premiums to go down. They want to force everybody into Obamacare. What was called, by the way, in law, the Affordable Care Act. Does anybody really think it's affordable? I mean, my gosh, it's been 80% higher premiums on families since they passed that law known as Obamacare. And then they try to mask it with hundreds of billions of dollars in bailouts, not to families, but to insurance companies that are seeing record profits. We should not be continuing to bail out insurance companies and Obamacare. We should give families better options to lower care by things like cost share reductions, association health plans, which would work really well to have small businesses and their employees get more options to lower premiums. Health savings accounts, Peter, are highly effective at lowering costs in healthcare. PBM reform, we passed that through the House and it died in the Senate under Chuck Schumer. All of those are ideas that are on the table and more that we're bringing back. And we're discussing those. We discussed them during the shutdown. We're going to be bringing more legislation in the weeks ahead, all of them proven to lower premiums and give families more options to control their health care, not to force them into Obamacare at higher costs.
And Leader Scalise, really quick before you go, I have to ask about this. You're such a big LSU Tigers fan. They fired the football coach, Brian Kelly. The governor is so mad at LSU's athletic director, who's now gone, for giving Kelly a $54 million golden parachute that he gave this update about the next coach.
I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee and they're going to go find us a coach.
So who should Donald Trump select as the new LSU football coach?
Look, I was at the game yesterday. By the way, we beat the Arkansas Razorbacks. It was a great competitive game. I'm floating.
We don't care about the coach. At least I don't. Let's get back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, guys. As she says that basically her life is in danger after supporting the release of the Epstein files and coming under fire by Trump. Says Marjorie Taylor Greene says she is getting unalive threats after social media spar with Trump, guys. Oh, it's getting serious.
So we're going to be getting into some of the latest headlines. This having to do with the Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene as she's sparring back and forth with President Trump on social media. We've been watching this here behind the scenes on Live Now from Fox, and we want to bring you some of those posts to continue to add context to this conversation. Putting this one up, this is the latest post that's gone out from the representative's page, really in just the last 2 hours or so. She says, quote, "I am now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety as a hotbed of..."
Oh, she says her life is in danger after Trump withdraws his endorsement and basically, comes at her on social media. She is now saying that private security firms are contacting her to basically let her know that her life is in danger, guys. Wow. Whew.
Really, in just the last 2 hours or so. She says, quote, "I am now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety as a hotbed of threats were made against me and are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world. The man I supported and helped to get elected, aggressive rhetoric attacking me has historically led to death threats and multiple convictions of men who were radicalized by the same type of rhetoric being directed at me right now. This time by the President of the United States. As a woman, I take threats from men seriously. Now I have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal must feel as a Republican who overwhelmingly votes for President Trump's bills and agendas. His aggression against me, which also fuels the venomous nature of his radical internet trolls, so many of whom are paid. This is nothing shocking to everyone. My phone is blowing up with constant amazing support. I'm so thankful to the political industrial complex. He does go on to talk about the toxic nature of some of this happening behind the scenes. It's a very, very long tweet as well, but she ends it off by saying that the political industrial complex and the toxic, violent nature of American politics must end. Our country is worth saving, and it can only be done if we pull together and save ourselves. That's, again, this is the latest tweet that we have from Marjorie Taylor Greene on calling for these hotbed of threats that have been made against her. But again, this is all stemmed from a back and forth conversation happening on social media. I want to put up the post that we also saw from President Trump this morning on his Truth Social site. He said this: lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, green grass turns brown when it begins to rot, betrayed the entire Republican Party when she turned left, performed poorly on The Pathetic View, and became the rhino. Whoa! No, she always was. Just a different fake politician, no different than Rand Paul Jr., which he has in parentheses Thomas Massie, and got caught being a full-fledged Republican in name only, then again referring to the term rhino, and said to make America great again. All of this exploding today on social media. And so to talk a lot more about what we see here, I want to bring into the conversation political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Really a lot to get into. I wanted to read those posts out in full from social media so that way everyone at home can continue to see the context around this conversation. But really, let's focus on what we're hearing from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Trump going back and forth. Where is this all stemming from?
Because in many ways, Christina, they're very...
She said it's stemming, well, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said this is over her basically wanting the Epstein files to be released.
Much alike. They don't like slights. They don't take very well to people criticizing them. And from that perspective, if you just look at the length of the tweets, you can see that this is where they often air their grievances. Marjorie Taylor Greene, or now Marjorie Taylor Brown, according to the president, is the same woman who showed a lack of decorum on the floor of the House of Representatives during a State of the Union by former President Joe Biden, yelling out liar and things like that. She is a controversial figure, and it shouldn't surprise anybody, I think, that she eventually would end up in some problem with the President of the United States, and it happens here around these Epstein files.
And so, again, what we're seeing here, I'm glad you pointed out some of the history of what she's done over the years. But for so long, she even pointed it out in her post. She normally votes for in support of the president's policies, and he says that this all stems from the fact that he won't answer her phone calls.
Yes.
Is this not an odd thing for two people who are within
No,
this
she
party to
said
be
the
arguing over
Epstein files.
publicly? This isn't something that we normally see.
Well, all the rules have kind of gone out the window over the last few years, and so these grievances are aired more publicly today, and of course that's a byproduct of social media. When somebody posts, somebody has to answer in another post. The idea of needing lots of FaceTime and hand-holding is as old as politics. It's just a classic. It's very hard for sitting members of any office to spend an inordinate amount of time re-establishing or continuing to establish communication with people who should be their friends and should understand how busy they are. Now, if you're to believe the president, she calls every day and wants to discuss things, and as he pointed out, I have 535 members of the House of Representatives and the Senate to deal with, and all these other duties. And his point is, I don't have the time to talk with her every day and essentially shore her up. And Marjorie Taylor Greene should know that. For her part, she said, I wasn't calling every day. So, it's one of these he said, she said. And the only thing I think for the body politic is that people understand that Marjorie Taylor Greene is to the far right of the Republican Party and has been. And now, of course, the president is saying that she's, a rhino Republican in name only and all of that. So it's a spat. Donald Trump often makes up with people after he's had a problem with them. This may happen again in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And I think I want to get to really what's going to matter here is she's going to be up for re-election at some point. With him now pulling support from her, do you think that will affect her standing with Georgians? Have we seen this historically when the president pulls their backing from a candidate, that even when a president is popular or unpopular, that can affect the outcome of that race?
Always it's going to come down, Christina, to the candidate that's put up against her. And as the president said, he would be willing to back another candidate if it's the right person. That's a qualifier. And so that leaves some room for he and Greene to sit down and hash all this stuff out. But Greene on the right is very much like the AOCs and others on the left. They're very outspoken about what they believe. They don't take a lot of prisoners. And so she's got that reputation in Congress as sort of the counterpoint in many respects to some of these very progressive liberals on the left.
Appreciate it,
who vote all day long as well.
All right, so that's something we'll continue to follow here on Live Now from Fox as that conversation on Twitter is still going on. But I want to take a part of this conversation and lead what they've been talking about. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, in her own post on social media, has brought up the fact that next week, the House is set to vote on their full release of the full Epstein files. This has been something that has dominated the headlines. It's really hung over the Trump presidency as it pertains to some of the issues he hasn't been able to get away from. She's talking about how important it is that these files are released. Where do you think things are going to happen around that conversation as we look ahead to next week?
Well, as always with this volume of information, people are going to cull through these papers, emails, and all of what has been collected, and cherry pick it and put their own context to it. You've heard just a few moments ago the president from Air Force One talking about not only the volume but just the nature of the papers. Whose names may be in them. We already know that all of the national figures, or at least certainly some of them, including former President Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, Donald Trump, and other people are mentioned in these emails. And so the full release will give everybody a chance to pick through them. But it's like any other volume release. People will be going through looking for a sentence here, a comment there, an attempt to put context to those, when in fact it's probably more advisable to look at the body of the emails and see if there are trends there.
And Brian, I have to ask you, once again, President Trump has answered questions many times on the Epstein files, saying that there's nothing in them that connects him to them. And what you've seen throughout history, has there ever been another scandal this big hanging over the head of the president, where it still seems months and nearly a year later, still hanging over his head?
Oh, absolutely. We have going back almost now 250 years, we've had numerous scandals in American history that have hung over a president. If we go back just to the Watergate situation with Richard Milhouse Nixon, he had to battle these leaks and information coming out on Watergate literally for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. This Epstein deal for Donald Trump, I think if these files are released, there's either going to be, quote unquote, the smoking gun in there, which Democrats would like to find, or there's going to be a smoking gun in there that Republicans might like to find about Democrats. This is a kind of the third rail here for both Democrats and Republicans, depending on what is in all of these emails. And of course, part of the drip, 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 Christina, began with the Attorney General and others saying, we have names, we have files, and then none of that came out. But now it appears that perhaps as early as in the next couple of weeks, all of the huge volume of emails may be released, and everybody can pick through them and tell the story that they want to tell. That's what happens in a volume release like this.
And Brian, as a part of this, of course, we know that President Trump is still continued to ask the question. Last night, he was on Air Force One. They asked him about Ghislaine Maxwell, because at this point, we do know that Jeffrey Epstein, he took his own life while in custody. So there was no trial that happened for him. There was no prison sentence that ultimately happened for him. But someone who is serving time is currently his longtime ex-girlfriend and, of course, business partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. Where do you think that the president, as he still kind of tried to stay away, saying, I'm not talking about this, I haven't thought about this, is that the approach that you would expect him to take on that?
Well, yes, generally. He's got to convey that he's not thinking about this. He's not going to talk about it. He hasn't talked about it too much, only when pressed. And his answer to that is, hey, I've got a big world to worry about, not this thing about a guy that killed himself, as you saw in that presser on Air Force One, Trump saying he had never visited the island that Jeffrey Epstein owned, where apparently a lot of these things occurred, but Bill Clinton had. And so absent, again, a smoking gun, I think Donald Trump has to just continue to approach it just the way he's doing, and see what the additional emails provide. But at the end of the day, it is important to say that Jeffrey Epstein was, may I use the term, lowlife. It was a lowlife, and he took advantage of people in every which way. And unfortunately for him, he had a co-conspirator in Maxwell, and she's doing time. And one could speculate that maybe Maxwell knows more than she's talking about, and is and for that reason the president doesn't want to talk about it, because maybe sometime in the future he commutes her sentence. Who knows? But these are all speculative things that are being talked about, and we won't know much more until all the files are released and see where the ball drops.
All right, and Brian, before I let you go, we can put an end to the Epstein talk for now, but I want to look ahead to what comes after this in the long term. I'm going to put up this live vantage point that we have there of the U.S. Capitol building, and also there of the White House. We know that all of these things have an effect on a presidency, especially as the government shutdown officially came to a close this week. Congress, again, the Senate and the House ultimately voting to end the 43-day long historic shutdown. But what long-term effects do you think that a government shutdown has on a president's legacy? Of course, the one before this was underneath the Trump presidency in 2019. That one, of course, had a lot of conversation about it. Now this one reaching historic levels.
Right, longest shutdown in American history. I think because Donald Trump and Republicans came out on top on this, it probably net doesn't affect him a whole lot. He appears to be the stronger person in all of this. There's more to come, and sadly, in all of these government shutdowns, people, just everyday people, suffer, and it's unfortunate, and you hear the rancor, you hear the frustration by the American people, even about the fact that Congress exempted themselves some time ago from being affected by these shutdowns in terms of their own pay. They get paid through all of these things, and so the storyline there is that they don't suffer like regular people, like the air traffic controllers and these other people who were missing paychecks, or potentially we're going to miss more paychecks. But I think if the economy and everything snaps back, Christina, pretty quickly, it'll end up being another footnote. I will say one thing about Donald Trump, in contrast to past presidents. His ability to multitask is remarkable. He has an ability to, through his scheduled day, to touch numerous subjects and to have his arms around them. So as a multitasker, which he is, and I don't know that he sleeps very much either, he'll stay on top of world events and national events and deal with these other issues as well. Why do we know that? Because he already has demonstrated that he can.
All right, as always, we appreciate for joining us here, Brian Sobel, political analyst, to break down some of this week's top headlines. Brian, we appreciate you for joining us here on this Saturday.
All right, so that was a little bit more on this whole thing between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump, guys. Now, another thing that we keep on hearing them say is that they are getting ready to vote on the release of the Epstein files, whether to release or not release them. Here go a little bit more on that situation.
President Trump escalating his fight with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene as she pushes for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The Georgia Republican, who is once one of Trump's most loyal allies, now says the president's attacks are putting her life in danger, posting in part, "A hotbed of threats against me are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful..."
Now, I just showed y'all her saying that she was receiving unalive threats from people. She's most definitely doubling down on that, man. This is crazy, y'all. She chose to back the victims of Epstein's and she wants the files released, and they saying that Trump is doing everything in his power to keep the files from being released, even turning on some of the people in his own party, guys.
Man in the world. His aggression against me is completely shocking to everyone. In a string of posts on social media over the weekend, the president writing, "I'm withdrawing my support and endorsement of Greene," claiming she betrayed the entire Republican Party, calling her a ranting lunatic and a traitor. Greene in part responding, "He's coming after me hard to make an example to scare all the other Republicans before next week's vote to release the Epstein files." She's one of 4 Republicans who joined Democrats to sign a petition that forces the House to vote to demand the release of the full files on the convicted sex offender.
It seems like very rich and powerful men are being protected.
This weekend's public blow-up comes after months of tension. Greene recently criticized the president over his focus on foreign affairs rather than domestic issues, opposed his administration's bailout of Argentina's economy, and blasted Republican leadership during the government shutdown. But Greene says Trump turned on her over the Epstein files.
So the president dismisses all of this as a hoax, yet he's now demanding his attorney general investigate ties between prominent Democrats and Epstein. All of that just days after Congress released thousands of pages of documents on Epstein, many of which mention Donald Trump by name. Now, that vote in the House to demand the full release of the files is expected this week. But even if that passes, it's unclear where it goes in the Senate, and GO President Trump is very unlikely to sign on.
Okay, Selena, and there is more to talk about this. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and bring in Chief Washington Correspondent Jonathan Karl, who's going to be hosting This Week later this morning on ABC. So, John, what should we be looking for this week with the House vote on releasing those Epstein files?
Hey, good morning, Gio. The first thing you look for is how many Republicans actually vote in favor of this. Look,
The president tried, as you heard Selena recount, he tried mightily to prevent a vote on this from happening, to the point of bringing one, member of Congress, one ally, Congressman Boebert, to the Situation Room to meet with the Attorney General and the FBI Director. He tried mightily to keep this from happening. The vote, it now looks like, will be happening. And what I'm looking for is just how many Republicans cross over and vote for it. I think the number could be quite large. It could be 40, 50, maybe even more than that.
Absolutely. Okay, let's switch gears here because it was just last week that the government shutdown ended, but so much has happened, it seems like we've forgotten about it. What's next in terms of the fallout here from the shutdown?
Well, I mean, now the big question is political fallout. Democrats shut the government down, refused to vote for the temporary spending bill because they wanted to push for something to help with rising health care costs. Those Obamacare subsidies run out at the end of the year. There's some 20 million Americans who are poised to see their health care premiums skyrocket. Democrats didn't get anything, but now they're going to take that issue into the midterm elections. And Gio, let's not forget. I don't mean to worry you here. I know you've covered so much of the impact at the airports. But this is only temporary funding. This only goes through the end of January. I don't expect another shutdown at the end of it, but they need to come up with another agreement to fund the government for the rest of the year. President Trump loses a long battle over the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now he wants the Justice Department to investigate Democrats associated with Epstein, even as
this is crazy, y'all.
Appears over and over again in newly released emails. This week starts right now.
This is a hoax put out by the Democrat, and a couple of few Republicans have gone along with it because they're weak and ineffective.
New details in the Jeffrey Epstein case, as a House committee releases more than 20,000 pages of documents from Epstein's estate. President Trump is trying hard to fight the release of more Epstein files, but now he says he wants a new investigation.
What did he know with respect to
You want to look into Clinton, man? That's crazy, man. Yeah, man, look, Trump say get everybody.
with respect to the head of Harvard?
We'll speak exclusively with Republican Congressman Thomas Massie on his battle with Trump over the Epstein files and our roundtable on the political fallout. Back in gear.
I think the American people got a raw deal.
The government reopens after Democrats fail to get a deal on health care.
Why did you vote for it?
You look at our record and you tell me what you've done to protect the health care of Americans.
Millions brace for the impact as the White House faces new pressure over rising prices.
We need people to be able to go to the grocery store and actually buy what they need for their family. That takes a little bit of time.
Senator Chris Murphy is here on the Democratic divide over the shutdown. And we'll ask Trump economic advisor Kevin Hassett why the White House just rolled back some of Trump's tariffs. And revolutionary history that engulfed the White House this week over the Jeffrey Epstein files.
This week, the release of thousands of documents from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, sparking renewed questions about the sex offender's relationship with the president.
Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship for many years.
And now Trump is trying to shift the focus to Democrats. In an extraordinarily rare move, a president now publicly ordering his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the FBI to investigate Jeffrey Epstein, but only his relationship with prominent Democrats. Bondi wasting no time complying, appointing U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton, saying the department will pursue this with urgency.
Wasn't Bondi the same one that said, move along, guys, there's basically nothing to see here? Now Trump has told her to dig into the Democrats. But how, if there was nothing to see? See, that's why they need to go ahead and release these files.
And integrity. This despite the fact that earlier this year, Bondi herself closed the books on the Epstein case, insisting there's no there, saying we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Some Republicans are pushing back on the president's move.
I don't think it's appropriate for him to do it. I would ask him not to do that because all it does is taint our legal system.
Democrats labeling it a desperate attempt to change the subject.
Will Donald Trump be investigated as part of this? Or is there going to be one set of rules for Donald Trump's friends and supporters and another set for his critics.
Those emails part of some 20,000 documents released by the House Oversight Committee this week, many of which mention Trump. In a 2017 email, Epstein writing, "I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body. So yes, dangerous."
Whoa, that's what Epstein had to say about Trump, guys, in these emails. He has met some very bad people in his life. None as bad as Trump, guys. Whoa.
2017 email, Epstein writing, "I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body. So yes, dangerous." Shortly after Trump launched his presidential campaign in 2015, Epstein told at least one reporter that he had dirt on Trump and was willing to share. In a 2018 text to an unidentified person, Epstein writing, "I am the one who is able to take him down." Trump has denied any wrongdoing, but he has refused to release the full FBI files on Epstein, and now a bipartisan group of lawmakers are trying to force him to. Trump clearly furious, going on a tirade against one of his closest allies, Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of 4 Republicans who joined Democrats to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. The president calling her Marjorie Traitor Greene, labeling her a lightweight who betrayed the entire Republican Party, and announcing he's withdrawing his support and endorsement of her.
Something happened to her over the last period of a month or two where she changed, I think, politically.
Greene firing back, saying she's long supported the president, but I don't worship or serve Donald Trump. For This Week, Mary Bruce, ABC News, Washington.
And I'm joined now by Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who led the effort to release the Epstein files. Congressman Massie, thank you for being here. President Trump fought long and hard to prevent your discharge petition from going through. You won that battle. Now, what happens? How many Republicans in the House follow your lead and defy the president on this?
I think we could have a deluge of Republicans. There could be 100 or more. I'm hoping to get a veto-proof majority on this legislation when it comes up for a vote. And, you know, the president's been saying this is a hoax. He's been saying that for months. Well, he's just now decided to investigate a hoax, if it's a hoax. And I have another concern about these investigations that he's announced. If they have ongoing investigations in certain areas, those documents can't be released. So this might be a big smokescreen, these investigations, to open a bunch of them as a last-ditch effort to prevent the release of the Epstein files.
I mean, it is extraordinary to hear him demand an investigation and only mention Democrats, only mention his political opponents. But you're saying he may not really even want any investigation. He wants to prevent the release. Why does he want to prevent this? What is he afraid of?
You know, I've never said that these files will implicate Donald Trump. And I really don't think that they will. I think he's trying to protect a bunch of rich and powerful friends, billionaires, donors to his campaign, friends in his social circles. And that's my operating theory on why he's trying so hard to keep these files closed.
What do you think is actually in these files? I mean, we've seen so much Epstein material, from the criminal cases, the stuff that just came out this week, you know, from the estate. What do you think is left?
Yeah, I don't have to guess at what's in the files. I've talked to the survivors through their lawyer, and we know there are at least 20 people in those files. There are politicians, billionaires, movie producers who are implicated criminally, who haven't been investigated. And it's up to the FBI, not the survivors and the DOJ, to release those names, or at least to investigate them. And when I see Donald Trump announce a bunch of investigations, I don't see him going after these rich elites that are implicated in these files, according to the survivors.
The president has gone after you in some deeply personal ways. I mean, attacking you over and over again, even attacking you for regarding your wedding, your recent wedding, which, by the way, congratulations. What do you make of all that? And he's obviously supporting your primary opponents. I mean, what kind of retribution are you facing?
You know, my wife told me, she said, "I told you so. We should have invited Donald Trump. He's mad that he didn't get an invitation." So we're taking.
Hey guys, let's take a second to double tap that screen, y'all. Get the likes up. If you're on a mobile device, double tap the screen of your mobile device or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is everything that we know about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Trump feud over the release of the Epstein files, guys, as well as when it's up for vote for them, for Congress to release them, guys. Double tap that screen. We need 20 more likes. Double tap that screen or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. Shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, man.
With a grain of salt, he's being a bully or trying to be a bully. And they're trying to beat me here in Kentucky. But here's what's interesting. The people financing this campaign consist completely of 3 billionaires, and they're all in the Epstein class. In fact, one of them is named in Epstein's phone book, not the secret files that the FBI is keeping, but in Epstein's phone book. So it's a small world. Dogs don't bark at parked cars, and we are winning. I'm not tired of winning yet, but we are winning. And not only the speaker, but the attorney general, the FBI director, and the president himself and the vice president, they're taking a big loss this week because after months of fighting, I am winning this week with Ro Khanna. We're forcing this vote, and it's going to happen. I would remind my Republican colleagues who are deciding how to vote, Donald Trump can protect you in red districts right now by giving you an endorsement, but in 2030, he's not going to be the president, and you will have voted to protect pedophiles if you don't vote to release these files, and the president can't protect you then. This vote, the record of this vote, will last longer than Donald Trump's presidency.
Now, I've talked to Senate leadership who tell me that this is almost certainly not even going to be brought up for a vote in the Senate. What's your sense on that? I mean, I guess if there's an overwhelming vote, like you said, 100 Republicans join all the Democrats, the pressure will be immense. But do you have any sense the Senate's even going to vote on this?
Well, they don't have the procedural maneuver that Ro Khanna and I used in the House. They don't have that in the Senate. It's called a discharge petition. But the senators do have other ways to force votes, as amendments, for instance, on larger bills in order to let bills move quicker through the chamber. So they could force the vote in spite of the leadership's efforts. I just hope John Thune will do the right thing. Look, our own speaker tried to push this bill by unanimous consent last week within 15 minutes of me getting the 218th vote because he was trying to save people from a vote. If he's ready to pass it by unanimous consent, then the Senate leader should be as well. Just bring it up, but the pressure's going to be there if we get a big vote in the House.
All right, Congressman Thomas Massie, thank you for joining us this morning. And now we turn to Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator Murphy, thank you for being here. Before we get to the shutdown and all those related issues, on Epstein, the president is now demanding or has demanded that the Attorney General, the Justice Department investigate his political opponents. And Pam Bondi responded by basically saying, yes, sir, and moving in that direction. What do you make of that?
Well, it's both heartbreaking and totally unsurprising. The Department of Justice has just become a protection racket for Donald Trump and a witch hunt operation against his political opponents. This is why our democracy is in such peril right now, is that for the first time in our history, the Department of Justice operates in order to try to punish and lock up anybody that criticizes Donald Trump. I'm really proud of the work that Representative Massie has done in the House of Representatives, along with Ro Khanna. And yes, John Thune should bring that vote to the Senate floor as soon as it passes the House of Representatives. It's true that Donald Trump is trying to cover up for, I think, a host of really powerful and rich people, but he's frankly not that selfless. He wouldn't be going through all of this effort to try to stop the release of these files if he wasn't seriously implicated in those files. This is most likely the biggest corruption scandal in the history of the country. We know that because Donald Trump is going to these extraordinary lengths to stop these files from coming out. The Senate should take this vote. I think it'll be likely another big bipartisan vote, and I'm grateful to our House colleagues for sending it our way.
He certainly is going to extraordinary lengths. Of course, the president denies any wrongdoing in any of this. I want to move to the shutdown. Obviously, longest shutdown in history. You believe it ended too soon.
Let's not move past the Epstein. We stand on the Epstein files and the things going on with Taylor Marjorie Greene, guys. Check this out.
Everything in his power to quash a story that just will not go away, the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And that includes name-calling. Just yesterday, the stunning fallout between him and one of his biggest loyalists intensifies as he attacked MAGA Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene as a, quote, traitor amid her push to release the Epstein files. This after using the power of his government to try to change the focus of the story away from him, demanding a Justice Department probe of Democrats' ties to Epstein, something Attorney General Pam Bondi quickly said she would do, despite DOJ's past assessment that there wasn't evidence worth pursuing. But to Trump's dismay, he's about to face the biggest rebuke from his party of his entire second term, when later this week, scores of House Republicans plan to vote to release the case files, all as some newly released Epstein emails show Trump mentioned by name, though the president has not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing. Still, he made clear this weekend he does not want to discuss any of it.
We think it's bad to talk about it because it gets away from the subject of how well the Republicans are doing. We have the greatest economy. We have the largest investment ever made in our country's history. We have all of these great things happen. When you talk about the Epstein hoax, what happens is you're not talking about how well we've done. This is a hoax put out by the Democrat, and a couple of few Republicans have gone along with it because they're weak and ineffective. But this is a Democrat hoax to get away from the fact that they just lost the shutdown and they've lost the elections. They lost the big election, to me, in a record number.
All right, we have an excellent panel to break this all down. Let's go. Politico's Dasha Burns, CNN's Jeff Zeleny, CNN's Isaac Dover, and the Washington Post, Mariana Sotomayor. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all. Okay, so when Marjorie Taylor Greene first came to Washington in 2021 as an unflinching Trump loyalist, someone who was MAGA through and through, wore a MAGA hat to the State of the Union on the House floor, and now Trump is putting out messages like this over the last several days, calling her a ranting lunatic, saying she's gone far left, she's a disgrace to our Republican Party, she's betrayed the entire Republican Party, she turned left, and then calling her a traitor just yesterday. Okay, first of all, wow. I was not expecting that. What is he trying to do here? Is it just to send a message to the rest of the party that he will not take even an ounce of dissension here?
Well, I think the big concern here is Marjorie Taylor Greene could be creating a permission structure for other Republicans, other MAGA Republicans, to start to disagree with the president, to buck him on some of these critical issues. I mean, look, Epstein opened the door, right? And it's still one of the biggest concerns for the White House in terms of how these votes are going to go in the House and then in the Senate. But Epstein, followed by some dissension on the president's foreign policy. Now, most recently, the suggestion of a 50-year mortgage. Even Fox News, Newsmax, influencers on the right are against that policy. We are seeing these fractures among the base that is just not something that the White House, especially President Trump himself, is used to.
Yeah, it is. Is it just what Trump always does here, which is anytime there's someone who criticizes him, he goes after them, whether it's Liz Cheney or any other. You can go back down the line of Bob Corker, and for many, many years this has been his MO. Is it different though because it's MTG and who she represents?
I mean, I think the actions of the president are similar. I mean, we knew, obviously, as she has been sort of rising in her prominence, going on The View in recent weeks, and really going after Speaker Johnson, and then really not backing down at all on the Epstein matter and other things. It's not just that. What I'm sort of struck by in this is her criticism is pretty broad-based. She's talking about affordability.
Healthcare.
She's talking about exactly. And things that look like, I still support you. She always sort of phrases it with, I still like the president, but. And those buts are getting pretty significant. So, Dasha, to your point about the permission structure, that is going to be interesting to see how many Republicans obviously join the ranks of voting to release the Epstein files. The White House still wants to keep that number down, but the reality is they know that there's very little.
Are they going to push very hard to try to do that this week? Or are they
It's unclear. The pressure campaign last week to try to get Lauren Boebert to not sign the discharge petition, it failed spectacularly, and it was sort of an embarrassment. I mean, having a rank and file member of Congress over to the White House in the Situation Room complex to have this meeting, she ended up not removing her name from it. So we will see what the numbers are, but I am told the White House is still trying to keep them somewhat in check. We'll see if that's 75 Republicans, 100 Republicans. That would be extraordinary, but you just get the sense that things are a little bit different now. It's too early to call the president a lame duck, there's no doubt, but you can just get the sense that things are slightly
That's what's really
slightly
scary for this White House about this is the idea that a lame duck period is looming here. And I think this gives that little flavor of it.
And it could be a window into the post-Trump era. Here's what MTG said about in responding to all of this. And one of the things that she said the Americans wish he would fight this hard to help the forgotten men and women who are fed up with foreign wars
Marjorie
and
ain't
foreign
laying
causes,
down, guys.
are
She
going
is
broke
most
trying to
definitely
feed
fighting
their
back.
families and are losing hope of achieving the American dream. That's what I voted for. Is she more in line with the base in some ways than Trump?
Well, look, I think the problem that she's hitting at here is that Donald Trump has not been able to answer the question why. Why is he fighting so hard to keep these files from being released? He's not explained that. He's also not explained why prices are not down when his entire campaign was really based on that idea that he would be attacking prices. And he has said, oh, maybe it's the leftover from the Biden days, but we are 10 months into the Trump presidency, and prices, it's not like they've stayed high, they've gotten higher. People are seeing electricity bills that are higher, they're seeing grocery prices that are higher, and the public seems to be associating that with the tariffs, and certainly Donald Trump does too, given that he, despite this argument that the tariffs are because of a national emergency situation, that's how he gets around the law, and that he can just do it himself, is just haphazardly lowering them, including on the groceries in the last couple of days, just saying we're going to make coffee cheaper. Well, if the tariffs are getting rid of the tariffs and making coffee and other food and meat cheaper, then the tariffs made that food higher, the price is higher. And so that when Marjorie Taylor Greene hits on these things, it is this I thought that Donald Trump is saying he was the fighter for these things, and he has not shown it in her mind.
Yeah, and this is obviously comes ahead of this vote that's happening, expect on Tuesday in the House to call for the release of the Epstein file. The Republican leadership was forced to do this despite the push by the White House to try to kill this effort for months. Now it is finally coming to a head on the House floor. But look, I want to first look at the polling about where the public stands at large about the issue of the Epstein files. Overall, just 19% of the public approve of Trump's handling of this, and that includes just 10% of independents. But that Republican number is pretty interesting. 44% of Republicans approve of Trump. I mean, that is unusual because typically Trump's like the 90% on most issues when it comes to Republicans. It's 44%. But it also speaks to why we expect in the House a significant number of Republicans to break ranks here. What are you hearing from your reporting in whether they can reach that critical threshold, which is 290, which is a veto-proof majority in the House? What is the likelihood of that?
I think it is possible, and the reason why is because the Epstein issue remains the singular issue that we have seen Republicans publicly flip on the president, publicly not attack him necessarily, but want to continue releasing the files. I mean, there are a number of even vulnerable Republicans who say, yeah, I'm going to sign on to this, and even some more hardliners who say that they will do this. However, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has also pointed out that Trump is using her as an example. If you start to speak out against him, it is possible that he's going to come after you the way that he is now coming after me. So she even herself is saying maybe the numbers are not going to be as high as we once thought. But the fact that Speaker Johnson is going to try and bring this up onto the floor to make sure it has a 2/3 majority, it's still putting Republicans on the record, even if it doesn't pass.
You could still vote against the president, though, without sort of doing what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. She's sort of gone out there, but that's why the roll call is going to be interesting, particularly for Republicans like Ashley Hinson, for example, from Iowa, who's running for Senate. This is becoming an issue in the 2026 campaign. So I think it'll be interesting to see how many Republicans support this without ever sort of really talking about it publicly. I mean, the president can't attack everyone to the degree that he's done Marjorie
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
But that's why the Democrats forced this to not be a voice vote, which is what the Republicans tried last week.
Roll call.
They want everybody
I want them on the record,
Yes.
so then this will be an
There
issue
is-
in the campaign.
For sure.
There is one thing that Republican lawmakers are more scared of than President Trump, and that's President Trump's base. And right now, Trump and his base are not on the same page about this issue and a number of others, and that is going to have an impact on
Yeah,
how
I
they
mean,
vote.
she talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene, H-1B visas, and other
right.
issues that Trump is breaking with his base on.
All right, so that's that on that. Okay, so now that we've heard all this between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump, it's time to hear from a survivor, guys, of Jeffrey Epstein. Check this out.
With the most anticipated vote this week in Congress, as the House decides whether to force the Justice Department to release all of its files regarding convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It will be a moment when all 433 sitting members of the House will need to go on record with where they stand on this issue. For Republican lawmakers, Donald Trump will be watching closely, but so will Epstein survivors, some of whom are planning to be at the Capitol ahead of the vote. On Friday, a group of survivors released a letter to Congress, writing in part, "Several weeks ago, when a few brave survivors stood before you and recounted their harrowing stories, many of you were shaken to your core. We urge you, when you cast your vote, please do not forget the horror you felt that day. There is no middle ground here. There is no hiding behind party affiliation. The testimonies you heard are just a fraction of the unimaginable suffering endured by more than 1,000 victims alike. As you gather with your family this season, remember that your primary duty is to your constituents. Look into the eyes of your children, your sisters, your mothers, and your aunts. Imagine if they had been preyed upon. Imagine if you yourself were a survivor. What would you want for them? What would you want for yourself? When you vote, we will remember your decision at the ballot box." Joining us now, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington State and Jeffrey Epstein survivor Haley Robson, who will be joining other survivors on Capitol Hill this week ahead of the vote. Thank you both very much for coming to the weekend. Haley, let me start with you. What do you and other survivors want to accomplish? What's planned for when you come?
Can we get everybody who hasn't hit that like button to double tap that screen, guys? Get the likes up. If you're on a mobile device, simply double tap the screen or click those three dots and hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel, guys, as we get ready to hear from one of Epstein's survivors, basically on this whole situation going on with Trump, guys. Let's get those likes up. Double tap that screen if you have not. If you're on a mobile device, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. Can we get the likes to 500, guys? We need 40 more likes. That means 40 more of you 801 people who haven't hit that like button. Double tap that screen, guys, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you are new, guys. Double tap that screen. I see 483. You know what I'm saying? We need 17 more likes, guys. Double tap that screen or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. We're almost to 500 on that like button, guys. 10 more likes. Double tap your screen if you have not, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel. That's why I keep on saying hit that like button, guys. 4 more, y'all. Double tap that screen. Hey Q, I see you down there. What's up, Reload Key? Shout out to everybody that's participating and watching this video, man. Let's hear what the survivor has to say about all of this, guys.
Come back to Capitol Hill, stand on those steps again, and speak not only before the American people, but to the men and women in the House who will be set to vote.
I mean, the agenda is very clear. We want transparency. We want to touch base and reach out to all the members of Congress.
She is a survivor, guys.
We want to show our support not only for the members of Congress who courageously are on our side, who are starting to ask questions, who are signing the discharge petition and now signing the Transparency Act bill. We intend to come to the Capitol to reinforce our agenda, to let America see us united again, to keep on this journey of demanding transparency, and to just keep letting the world and reminding the world as well as members of Congress that, hey, listen, we're still here. We're here. We're ready. Let's do this. Let's get all the transparency that we've been asking for. Let's get that out on the table. Let's come together and support each other and get some things done in Washington.
Congresswoman Jayapal, what we've heard from the reporting, from our MS Now colleagues and from folks around the kind of reporting culture in the world is that there's a lot more Republicans who are going to be coming out than the 4 that signed on to this discharge petition. Some say dozens, some say up to 100. But I'm curious for those that don't seem like they're on their way to vote alongside Democrats here. When you talk to them, or if you're hearing from them, how are they thinking about standing with the survivors or just standing with Donald Trump? Like, how are they working through that? Because it seems, I think, to a lot of Americans pretty clear, and many of the Republicans that are in office right now ran on this exact issue.
Well, that's right, Eugene. And I just have to say to Haley and to all the survivors, that is the single most powerful thing that can happen right now, is for them to be in people's faces with their courage, with their bravery. Thank you, Haley. Thank you to all the survivors, because you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be able to listen to these stories and then say that you are not going to vote to expose the pedophiles and the rich and powerful people that were part of this massive, horrific, exploitative ring of sexual predators. And I think that for the Republicans that are not going to vote yes on this, and I don't know how many of them there are, but they are absolutely going to have to talk to their own people, because this isn't just a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is really across the board. Do you want to protect children? Do you want to protect the people out there that have been abused by this ring? Or do you want to actually expose and be transparent about everything that has happened? I think that we will have at least dozens of Republicans. I don't know what the number is, but I know that Thomas Massie, who I spoke to the other day on the floor, has been telling people, look, you may think Donald Trump is going to protect you for this election, but think about when he's out of office. Think about 4 years down the road, 6 years down the road. What are you going to say to your own daughters? What are you going to say to your own constituents about whether or not you voted to protect pedophiles? Because that's what this is. And so I feel pretty confident that we're going to pass this bill, this vote on the discharge petition with big numbers. I hope they're as big as possible, because we still need to put pressure on the Senate to be able to get the votes to an override proof majority. It's stunning to me that Trump would even think about overriding, but obviously he's obsessed with covering this up and covering up whatever role he may have had in this, or his billionaire buddies may have had in this.
Haley, despite how accessible Trump sometimes makes himself and how invested his supporters are in this story specifically, you and other survivors have not been afforded a meeting in the Oval Office to make a personal appeal to this president. If he happens to be watching the program right now, or if you did have the opportunity to meet with him, what would your personal appeal to him be on why he should release these files?
I understand the predicament he's in. I try to understand. I try to be compassionate. I try to be patient. But we are now decades into this, where the survivors have been begging and asking and pleading with not just the politicians, but the public to please help us understand what we went through and try to support and help us get to some type of resolve. And, if I could sit down with President Trump, it would be to look at him and say, where did we go wrong? Who owns you? What happened from last year to now? What event or what person or what influence changed the fact that you campaigned in 2024 on releasing the Epstein files? And how do we get back to the person I voted for and put in office? Because I feel extremely betrayed. And a lot of this that I'm enduring and the other survivors are enduring with the gaslighting and the, playing both sides of the fence. And, 1 minute you want to release the files, the next minute it's no, we absolutely cannot do that. You have to understand, for the survivors, it's very confusing when there's no explanation or resolve. And of course, at that point now, our conspiracies and our opinions are starting to change vastly, because now we're like, well, you've been saying that you're not involved, and for the most part we haven't seen anything directly linking you to abusing any of us specifically. I just don't understand, at what point do you not make yourself look guilty? Because at the end of the day, all he is doing is making himself look like he is guilty of something, and it's not okay. We don't like what's going on. We want to help and change the dynamic of being on the right side of things. I think Jay Appel said it so beautifully. It is no room in society for pedophilia. We shall not be protecting pedophilia, whether it's a lower middle class perpetrator or somebody who has the status and wealth and connections like Jeffrey did. It is intolerable. What happened to this country? What happened to protecting the children?
Haley, you said something a moment ago that made all of us snap to attention, and that is, you said you voted for Donald Trump. Did you vote for him? Was part of the reason why you voted for him was because he made it part of his message that he would release the Epstein files? One, and two, what do you make of the fact that now not only is he calling it a hoax, but he's now calling on the Attorney General to investigate Bill Clinton and other political foes, Democrats, left-leaning folks, in the Epstein issue for something that he says is a hoax. But first, was it the promise of releasing the files that earned your vote for him?
So as an American, everybody has their policy or their issue that really is an important factor to the voting, to casting their ballot. There are things that I voted for certain reasons, and I did vote for Trump. One, because in 2024, his entire campaign had...
Hold up, guys. I'm seeing something. It appears that they are voting. It appears that they are voting on the release of the files as we speak. Check this out. Or maybe I'm wrong. Look at this. As she speaks.
Have been based on the idea of exposing the government and releasing the files from Jeffrey Epstein and being able to give us transparency. And in all fairness, it wasn't just Trump. It was his entire administration, Kash Patel, P.M. Bondi. They all sat there and screamed to the top of their lungs about transparency and how they were going to release the files. So that is definitely a factor. That is pretty much the reason I voted for Trump, in addition to in 2009, him and Brad Edwards, which is my legal representation,
you see what it say,
had a conversation. Trump gave our attorney insight and information that checked out. So I believe that this man ideally had the right intention and wanted to expose the pedophiles and wanted to release the Epstein files as he campaigned on it. However, obviously, as the entire world and the entire country is seeing not just Trump, but his entire administration backpedal, and now they've turned against us, making us an enemy, and I don't understand why. And I think the more emails and the more information that's coming out, we're starting to see exactly why those emails and documentation in the Epstein files that Pam Bondi called them are not being released. And I will say that I do have regret. I feel betrayed by my own party, and it goes beyond just the fact that he's involved in the files or has been named in the Epstein files, whether he's complicit or actively involved. The point that we're trying to make as survivors is, We
That ain't real
still don't
Southside.
know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, and this is problematic for us. And by the release of all the
What's up,
Epstein
Mad
files,
Dog?
it will
I think
vindicate
so
those
too.
who need to be
So I was shocked
vindicated,
when I seen
and
that.
it's going to serve indictments to those who need to be indicted. And we need those transparency. We need those files, resolved. We need them displayed for the public and displayed to the survivors so we can have closure, so we understand what was done. And so not just us, but Congress and the entire world can see who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. Because right now, I think what we're dealing with is the dribble and drizzle of information that is clouding the real base of the story, which is identifying the perpetrators and the victims. And right now, we need clarity on who was involved. And it's too slow. It's happening at a very slow pace, and we would like to pick up the pace a little bit.
Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal and Haley Robson, thank you so much. And Haley, thank you for coming on, and to all of the survivors who are coming this week. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah, I don't know what this vote is all about, but it's saying something about Epstein. That's why I showed it to y'all. I don't know, y'all. I don't know, y'all. What y'all think? I think Trump's famous statement grabbed, oh my goodness. Looks like the 2004 Democrats are voting against releasing them. But like y'all saying down there, they saying that they're not supposed to be voting until Tuesday. But this most definitely is, I don't know, y'all. He said, Yeezy says that's not what this vote is for. Now it gotta be something else. Well, y'all see what the title say. They say it's an amendment. Please release the files. This is gonna be epic. Continuing approaching the Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military, Construction, and Veteran Affairs and Extensions Act 2026. Says Senate amendment. Yeah, I don't know, man. Bobby, I'm just saying. I just ran across it. I seen it said something about the Epstein files, so I'm trying to see what's going on. Okay, they say the title is bait. Maybe so. Maybe they just clickbaited us. But I don't clickbait. Let's get back to it.
Release of the Jeffrey Epstein emails. The messages put the spotlight back on the relationship between the two men, with Epstein suggesting Trump, quote, knew about the girls. Trump has now called on his attorney general, Pam Bondi, to begin an investigation into high-profile Democrats and the late sex offender to try and deflect the attention from Trump. Not only has Pam Bondi followed the orders, she, along with FBI Director Kash Patel and Trump, have attempted to persuade Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert not to sign on to a bill to force a vote on the release of all of those files. The vote on the discharge position is expected to happen next week. Last night, Trump spoke publicly for the first time about the Epstein emails. He once again denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. And he explained why he doesn't want Republicans to support releasing these files.
We think it's bad to talk about it because it gets away from the subject of how well the Republicans are doing. And when you talk about the Epstein hoax, what happens is you're not talking about how well we've done. That's the whole purpose behind them. They want to waste people's time, and some of the dumber Republicans like that.
All of this is a dramatic reversal from what Trump, Bondi, and others in his administration had previously promised to do when it came to the Epstein files. Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book? Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean,
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
It's
a new day.
They
It's a
all
new
saying they need to
administration,
release
and everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know.
Joining us now is Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Walkinshaw, thanks for joining us this morning. You are part of the committee that released this new information. What else should we expect to come?
Well, look, first,
have them with you.
I don't have the files. I mean, just to set the stage, this story here is a story of rich and powerful men raping and abusing young girls and women. And the story coming up this week is how many of the rich and powerful men, the Republicans in Congress, are going to continue to aid and abet Donald Trump's cover-up of that story. And we learned some significant new information last week with the emails that were released that show that Trump's relationship to Epstein and Epstein's crimes are much closer than Trump wants us to know. His frantic, even by Donald Trump standards, frantic reaction last week, I think, is very telling. But we have to continue the investigation to learn more. The Department of Justice is under subpoena. The Oversight Committee has subpoenaed the Department of Justice, and in my view, they are not in compliance with that subpoena because they are not releasing the information they should release. The Epstein estate is, the Department of Justice isn't. That's why Congress needs to pass the legislation to release the files next week.
Mayor McCord, our colleague, in 7A, like in our very first blog, said something that I think is really interesting, that she believes that it is a tactic for President Trump to want them to start this investigation in the DOJ, because now they can say, oh, we can't send you any of the Epstein files because we're doing an investigation into them, even though Pam Bondi herself said there is no investigation to be had. Does what Mayor seem to be right, that this is more of a tactic than like any real thing happening?
I think that's plausible, and I think what you could see, look, the bill will pass on Tuesday in the House to release the files. 50 plus Republicans, I think, will end up having to vote for it.
You've heard that from other Republicans who are not on the discharge petition.
That's right, and more each day are coming forward and saying, I'll vote for it. It's a very difficult vote.
I see somebody said that Biden released them. No, he didn't. But you got to remember, one of the things that Trump campaigned on was releasing the Epstein files. And that's why people are right now about releasing those files, because that was a part of his campaign. That's why they bringing him up and not bringing up Biden and saying nothing about Biden or Obama releasing them, because they didn't campaign on releasing the files. Trump did.
You're a Republican to...
Is it? Which is, well, I can understand, well, if you're a Republican...
Yeah, it pits you between Trump and objective reality that the American people want to see these files. So I think what you could see happen is either in the Senate, Republicans using this sham investigation that Trump has ordered DOJ to launch to not vote to release the files, or Trump using this sham investigation to justify his veto if the bill gets to his desk.
Congressman, can I get you to go back? You said something, and I just want to make sure I'm not jumping to conclusions here. You said justice isn't releasing the files or the info, but the Epstein estate is. Does that mean that the materials that have been released by the Epstein estate is already in the possession of DOJ, and they've just refused to release it?
No, there are certainly files and documents that are in the possession of the estate that might not necessarily be in DOJ's possession.
So they have the investigation.
That's right. Both are under subpoena. Absolutely, DOJ has files that the estate doesn't have. DOJ has released files, 90+% of which were already publicly released. So they essentially have done nothing in response to the subpoena. We're going to keep pressing on that, but the answer is to pass the bill and for President Trump to sign it to release the full files from the DOJ.
Did you read through these 20,000 emails, like outside of what?
Before they were released?
It was like a train wreck that you couldn't look away from in some instances. And obviously, I think there's a lot of extrapolation one can do and own interpretation, since we don't have the full picture here. And at the end of the day, obviously Donald Trump was not charged with anything, and we don't know more than what these emails actually say. But outside of the emails related to Trump that were really highlighted this week, what else did you find the most interesting?
Well, I'll tell you, I think what is very interesting, and the emails that were released shed light on this, emails that I think are yet to come shed light on this. I'll give you two words that we don't talk about that much anymore: QAnon and Pizzagate. And it's easy to underestimate how much those two conspiracy theories fueled the rise of MAGA. And those are conspiracy theories that said a cabal of elites in Washington and financial elites were sexually abusing children. And the only way to stop it, because it was so pervasive and so depraved, was to have a strong man like Trump. Trump is the hero in QAnon and Pizzagate. And the reason that MAGA is crashing out right now is that what we've learned this week, that at a minimum, Trump knew that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were trafficking young girls. We know Virginia Giuffre was trafficked from Mar-a-Lago. Trump says he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. You don't get kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. You might get kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for trafficking underage girls. But if Trump knew, as I think the emails suggest.
How long did he know for?
And why didn't he go to the FBI at the time? Why didn't he go to the authorities at the time?
And why is he right now not saying that he didn't know? When you talk to your Republican colleagues, especially those on the Oversight Committee, do they think they're struggling with kind of being in the middle of Trump and the right thing to do, or are they, which how sometimes they talk to us when we talk to them, they say, no, I know it, but I just don't want to get attacked by Donald Trump. Like, how are they wrestling with this?
I wish they were struggling more with it being the right thing to do. Maybe some are. I think they're struggling with being between where Donald Trump is today and where the MAGA base is, because Donald Trump led them there. The MAGA base agrees that these files should be released. A lot of them made their careers on it. Kash Patel is a good example.
It's such important context, actually, that I think has been left out of the conversation this week. That is the only reason why this is the most popular issue other than Donald Trump himself. It's the most unifying and now, for Donald Trump, divisive issue within his party.
You know who's not struggling with this whole situation on the Republican side? Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she has been hammering away on a whole host of issues, but also on Epstein. And the president's not happy. He started posting about her last night, and he posted, within the hour, let's put this up. Lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, green grass turns brown when it begins to rot, betrayed the entire Republican Party when she turned left, performed poorly on The Pathetic View, and became the rhino that we all know she always was. Just another fake politician, no different than Rand Paul Jr., Thomas Massey, who got caught being a full-fledged Republican in name only. Rhino. Make America great again, all caps 3 exclamation points. I mean, you're in Congress. You work with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor. Yeah. What do you make of just what's going on with her, and now what's going on now that the president has weighed in?
Yeah, well, as someone who's of the left, I disagree that Marjorie Taylor is on the left. But look, I have to give her a lot of credit, and Lauren Boebert, who was summoned into the White House Situation Room.
Talk about that. Why is that significant?
Well, look, I remember the photos of President Obama in the Situation Room overseeing the operation that led to the death of Osama bin Laden and all of the important history-making events that have taken place in that room. We now have the President of the United States using the White House Situation Room to cover up for a pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. That is an astounding thing. I give Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and the others on the discharge petition enormous credit for standing up to that pressure. I think we got to give credit where credit is due, whatever their motivations might be.
To be clear, the president was not in the Situation Room, but the Attorney General of the United States and the FBI director were in the Situation Room.
And Lauren Boebert came away from that meeting, according to reporting that we saw from the New York Times, feeling even more skeptical about what Trump's doing and having more questions about the cover-up here.
Because at some point, anyone with the brain is going to ask the question, why don't you want these things out?
Right.
We don't know what's in them. That is the point, is we don't know what's in them. Yep. We don't know if he did anything wrong, right? Up until this point, we haven't seen that. Yep. But trying to block it like this for months is... A lot of people have a lot of questions. I am one.
Right. My question, Congressman, then is, we're all focused on President Trump. Who else could be in these files that is motivating the president to just, I think you said earlier, just in this desperate effort to keep the files from coming out?
I mean, that leads back to another strange piece of this saga, which is Donald Trump's labor secretary, Alex Acosta, before he was labor secretary, was a prosecutor who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal. That sweetheart deal prevented other figures other than Epstein and Maxwell from being prosecuted. Why? And who were they?
I was talking to someone on Wall Street recently, and they told me that one of the reasons why might be because of the damage it would do. Like, there might be so many names in there of powerful people that the damage that it would do to the country and kind of like the stability that we have
of the democracy
would be a problem. I don't know if I agree with that, but that is
I think the cover-up is doing damage to the stability of our democracy right now, and so we need to get beyond it.
Congressman James Walkinshaw of the great Commonwealth of Virginia, thank you very much for coming back to the weekend.
All right, let's go.
FBI and the Justice Department to look into the relationships between Jeffrey Epstein and a number of prominent Democrats. The names on that list include Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and many others. The president made that announcement in a social media post. He went on to accuse Democrats of trying to use the Epstein investigation as a way to deflect criticism on the government shutdown. He also says this is a Russia scam. Let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro. Aaron, thank you for joining us today. What does the president say is the reason for this investigation?
We've become bored with watching actors give us phony
that
emotion.
Democrats brought up this statement, in his words, quote,
hoax,
to try from their involvement, their creation of this government shutdown just ended recently, and quote, all of their other failures. So now, saying, the story is out of paying such attention the ties between me and Jeffrey Epstein, which the White House and Trump have said that they have severed their ties decades ago. He's saying to instead look at prominent Democrats. You mentioned former President Bill Clinton, the former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, as well as Democratic mega donor Reid Hoffman, who's been mentioned by Trump a couple times this year in terms of investigations. But now this is the next tangible step that he's taking to try and get some of the focus when it comes to Epstein to instead potentially implicate the Democrats, which is something that he actually ran on in his 2016 campaign, but is all notable now given the week and what we have learned in those emails in regards to the Trump-Epstein relationship.
And Aaron, I think I already know the answer to this, but obviously the House is set to vote on releasing the full Epstein files next week, but then it also has to go to the Senate and ultimately the president's desk. Has the president indicated at all whether or not he'll actually sign it if it gets to him?
Yeah, Mugo, he has not. What we saw earlier this week, actually, were White House officials at least talking to one Congresswoman, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, in what has been reported as a sort of pressure campaign to get her to not sign on to that petition to release more files in the House. She, of course, has stood by her decision to sign on to that. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the Senate, where we don't really know exactly how many Republicans will vote to disclose more Epstein files, though we have seen a couple say that they will. And we're going to see how the White House and President Trump manage this politically in the event that it does get to his desk.
Aaron Navarro, I know you'll be watching that one. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, this is also a story on Capitol Hill where Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene joined CBS Mornings earlier. She criticized her Republican colleagues for failing to release the full Epstein files, but she is still defending the president. Take a listen.
It's for the victims. These women have been waiting, some of them for decades. I talked to several victims that were raped by Jeffrey Epstein back in the 90s. And so this is information that has needed to come out for a very long time, and the American people have demanded it. And so the American people deserve to see transparency from their government. Rich, powerful people should not be protected. That is completely wrong. And it's a message to victims everywhere, victims of rape, human trafficking, and children who are trapped in terrible situations, that the government will not protect the predators, that we will work hard to protect the victims. I believe the women, and the women have said over and over again that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Even Virginia Giuffre said it under oath, and she wrote it in her book. And so if we listen to the women, they say Donald Trump has done nothing wrong.
All right, I want to bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killion, who's on Capitol Hill for us today. Nicole, thank you for your time. Can you walk us through how this vote will take place and the process behind it?
Yeah, well, this is a little different than, I guess, a traditional bill in the sense that this is all stemming from what's known as a discharge petition, which we've been talking about for some time now. And basically, that is a measure that kind of goes around that regular process. You have to get a certain number of signatures for a vote to be forced on whatever it is. In this case, calling on the Department of Justice to fully release the Epstein files. So this was a bipartisan discharge petition that was put forth by Kentucky Republican Tom Massie and California Democrat Ro Khanna. They were able to get 218 signatures on that petition just this week, with that final signator being Adelita Grijalva, the new congresswoman from Arizona, who told me that it was important to do this because it was something that she had committed to. And similar to what Marjorie Taylor Greene just said, you know, she felt that she was doing this for the survivors to hopefully provide a sense of justice and transparency for them. So now that the level of signatures has been reached, typically with something like this, we expect that it's got to sit for a little bit before it can be called up for a vote. But Speaker Mike Johnson kind of surprised a lot of folks this week when he said, look, we're going to bring this up for a vote next week. So that's a little sooner than we had anticipated. And it's really just a question of the process and how they try to do this, if they will bring it up like a regular piece of legislation, or if they will do something known as a suspension of the rules, where they try to fast track a bill even more. In that case, it would require more votes for this to pass. But we have already heard from Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries this morning, who said in an interview he believes that this will be a decisive vote.
And Nicole, what do these latest developments indicate about how this is being handled on both sides of the aisle?
Well, look, I mean, obviously there is bipartisan support for this in terms of the measure that I just outlined. You know, there are certainly many Republicans, and as you heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who feel that it's important to, you know, just hold this vote, again, to compel the Justice Department to release more information. And now that being said, you know, the House Oversight Committee has continued to do its work surrounding the ongoing investigation into how this Epstein matter has been handled. We have seen the committee release thousands of pages of documents, including this week. So there are some who feel, look, let the House Oversight Committee do its work. You know, why do we necessarily need this vote? But then you have other members, again, both Democrat and Republican, who feel, you know, look, let's get everybody on record. Let's try to provide some more transparency and justice for some of these survivors. So that is kind of the debate that's been happening here on Capitol Hill.
Okay, Nicole Killion, thank you so much.
All right, so there went some, and we got, it says, what is Trump trying to avoid? President dodges questions about Epstein.
Joining us now, MSNBC White House reporter Laura Barone Lopez, staff writer at The New Yorker Susan Glasser, and chief Washington correspondent for Puck, Leanne Caldwell. I mean, Laura, I asked you this yesterday. I'm going to ask you it again today. Why is he so nervous about these emails, about this information? If he says there is no there there, and that he thinks Jeffrey Epstein is a creep, why not just say, yeah, take it all, I'm fine, take it all?
Look, Katie, I don't know if I'm going to have a more satisfying answer today than I did yesterday. What I will say is that obviously we want to ask the president those questions. I'd like to ask him that question. I think other reporters in the White House press corps would love to ask him that question, which is, why does he appear to be whipping against the vote
next week, tried to get names taken off the discharge petition, tried to get House Republicans to take their name off of it. Why not be willing to release it? And no one has been able to ask him that directly, especially with cameras on in the public view. And when White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked very directly about some of the substance of these emails the other day, she was asked by CBS reporter Wei Zhizheng, did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim? And she didn't answer it. So they're not necessarily engaging on the substance of the emails. They're not engaging on why the president is trying to divert and distract by saying he's going to now direct the Justice Department, ask the Justice Department, the Attorney General, to investigate others who he knows may have had some relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But obviously the president had a long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That's well documented. So despite eventually saying that he kicked him out of his club years later, he had a relationship with him, as all those videos and those emails show, and apparently does not want these to be released.
Dwayne.
There's a numbers letter out to members of Congress, Leanne, and here's what it says. You have the ability to vote to release the Epstein files.
The people care. I seen somebody that said, who cares? Man, the people care. And it's evident. You know, all these stations talking about these Epstein files, a lot of people care about what was suffered at the hands of those victims by Jeffrey Epstein and others. Those are the people that care.
And with it, deliver a promise the American people have awaited for far too long. We implore you to do so. Several weeks ago, when a few brave survivors stood before you and recounted their harrowing stories, many of you were shaken to your core. We urge you, when you cast your vote, please do not forget the horror you felt that day. There is no middle ground here. There is no hiding behind party affiliation. The testimonies you heard are just a fraction of the unimaginable suffering endured by more than 1,000 victims alike. How much influence does a letter like this have? What do you expect?
I don't know why Biden didn't release them. I don't know why Obama didn't release them. All I can tell you is I think that it got more attention towards these files once Trump and his team campaigned on releasing them. That's why they on Trump like they are, because he was the one that campaigned on releasing those files. That's why they own them. That's why.
Happened in Congress, Leanne.
So Speaker Mike Johnson said that
let's get Rusty right up out of here telling me to shut up. Do you tell your mom and daddy to shut up? Yeah, then you don't need to be telling me to shut up. You don't run nothing over here. This ain't your show. If you don't like to hear me talk, you know what I'm saying, go find you somewhere else to watch the show. Yeah, we're going to get you right up out of here. Congratulations. You just got deported. We'll holler at you.
The vote he would bring it up this coming week. So we do expect that to happen unless he changes his mind, which of course he could. But it will have to come up soon, regardless. And from what I'm hearing from my Republican sources is that there are going to be a lot of Republicans, perhaps dozens, who in fact vote for the release of these files. For many, it is politically untenable. For others, they think that it's just the right thing to do. And the pressure is too great for them to ignore it when they have the choice in front of them. And so I do expect, based on what Republicans are telling me, that this vote will pass overwhelmingly. That doesn't mean that these files are going to be released imminently. It, of course, has to go to the Senate next. And then if it passes the Senate, then it's up to the president. Does he veto it or does he sign it? And that could be a very interesting decision, Katie.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be interesting and potentially damaging. I mean, Susan, I'm so happy you brought up what happened in the 90s with the Ken Starr investigation and where it started and where it led, because I think we do forget that once it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. You know, it really starts to gather steam, it gets bigger, and it becomes uncontrollable. Do you foresee this potentially happening here?
Well, look, I think
frankly, it's already happened, arguably. Remember that this has been a scandal that has it crept up in different incarnations from the beginning of Trump's time in public life. It actually claimed one of his first-term cabinet secretaries was forced to resign, Alex Acosta, because he had signed off on what later, people came to view as a sweetheart plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein when Acosta had been a prosecutor in Florida. Donald Trump was very defensive, asked repeatedly about Epstein in 2019 after he died. In fact, interestingly, in terms of how the White House is handling this now, right, it's often there's underlying conduct in a scandal, and then there's the question of the handling it or the cover up or the associated spin-off investigations. Well, in this case, the White House this week, Caroline Leavitt, claimed that Donald Trump fell out with Jeffrey Epstein and that he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was quote unquote a pedophile. Well, in 2019, Donald Trump was asked very directly by reporters, did you have any suspicions at all about Jeffrey Epstein? Did you know about him? And Donald Trump looked in their face and said, absolutely no. No, I had no suspicions at all. So explain to me, and I wish someone would ask Caroline, Leavitt, how is it possible that Donald Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being a pedophile if he had no suspicions at all about him being a pedophile? So this is the kind of example where White Houses dig in to trouble, and there's an abuse of power that's already occurring. Trump today is demanding an investigation by his Justice Department of Democrats on the basis of, no specific allegation of illegal activity, simply to take attention.
Well, it's interesting because what you're seeing are a bunch of people who have email exchanges or relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. And I guess the logic here is that everybody who's been talking to him, if they have a D in front of their name, must be implicated in some way, must have done something wrong. But I, who also had a relationship with him, I am completely clean. That's a hard pill to swallow. I know there are a lot of Trump allies out there who are trying to do that and trying to make this look like Donald Trump is a savior here, or this exonerates him in some way. But it's difficult logic is how I'll put it, Susan.
Yeah, it's not a circle that you can square right away. I think it's really important, again, that it's MAGA itself that is fueling this political dilemma for the president, by the way, because they've been obsessed with proving the idea that there was a secret cabal of Democrats and celebrities surrounding Epstein who were all implicated in it. And it's very politically inconvenient at a minimum that one of the people who was in Jeffrey Epstein's circle happens to be the leader of their MAGA movement. And so, that's what's happening here right now is it's a political story for Donald Trump, not because we're talking about it. Frankly, he doesn't care if we talk about it, but because his own base has been the ones that have fueled the idea that there's something terrible hiding in these files all along. So they're outraged when Donald Trump is the one who tells them they can't have the files.
So part of what the House has done here and what Republicans will point to is that they don't really need to get on this discharge petition, even though it's got enough votes to pass if it is brought to the floor. Part of the reason they don't need to be a part of that is because the House Oversight Committee has been getting information from DOJ and from the estate. So far, they've gotten a lot more from the estates that has been revelatory than they've gotten from DOJ. I wonder, Leanne, anything else coming soon? What should we expect next?
I actually just asked the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Garcia, about this the other day, 2 days ago. I said, what should we expect? What else is there? And he made the point that he's not sure. He also said that, as you said, Katie, that the Epstein estate has been a lot more cooperative responding to these subpoenas, and that is where these 20,000 emails have come from. But he also noted that all of the information is with the Justice Department, and that is the information that is absolutely critical to have. He reminded reporters that when the Justice Department released information earlier this year in response to the House Oversight Committee, that most of it, he quoted 97% of it, had been released before. So there seems to be more out there that we haven't seen.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm also just very struck by, and this is for a longer conversation, the way in which it seems Jeffrey Epstein is searching for some sort of leverage over Donald Trump. He's trying, I mean, he says over and over again to multiple different people, in emails to, a woman named Kathy Rumler, I know how dirty Donald Trump is. My guess is that non-lawyers, New York business people have no idea what it means to have your fixer flip. Also, the grammar and the punctuation on these emails are so strange. It's really hard to follow. I don't understand what was going on in his head. But he keeps talking over and over again. I can talk to the Russians. I've got stuff on Donald Trump. I can explain Donald Trump to them. He seems like somebody who at the very least knows the walls are closing in. He's looking for a way out. All right, Leanne Caldwell, Susan Glasser, LBL. Thank you, lady.
All right, so that's their views on why Trump is dodging the Epstein situation. It says Trump panics over 200K Epstein emails. Ariel Bundy shredding her own cover-up memo. Let's go.
Dem wins to the Epstein email explosion this week. He is having a tough November. These new Epstein emails have upended the White House. And they're only getting worse because it takes time, even in our rapid information environment, for journalists and politicos and any citizen who wants to look and go through these 20,000 emails. All of this started when Democrats used their power to push the envelope and release some of the emails, the ones.
So the mainstream media seems to think that Trump is panicking, even though a lot of you Trump supporters down there in the chat are saying panic where? Well, everybody else is seeing it besides y'all.
Showed why Trump is hiding as they demand a vote to release them all. Republicans got mad, remember, in the week and said, oh, well, we'll release more. And so what started with 3 emails turned to 20,000 tonight.
Can we get 20 more likes, guys? We need we're 20 likes away from 600. Double tap that screen if you have not done so on your mobile device, or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is everything we know so far regarding the emails, the releasing of the files, Trump going against Marjorie Taylor Greene, it all seems to point to Trump is shaking in his boots about the release of the Epstein files.
I have more details on how it's all going, because this is a vast tranche of documents, of emails, that many people clearly, from the way they were typing to Epstein, thought would stay secret forever. Epstein made the biggest news, perhaps, from the grave, so to speak, with his now unearthed statement to Maxwell, a sex trafficker convicted and in prison right now, that, of course, Trump knew about the girls. Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has very specifically tried to deny that he knew what Epstein was exactly up to, although
Epstein himself said that Trump knew about the girls, y'all. Wow. Yeah, man, that is crazy. Which goes to basically fuel some of those, thank you, Dwayne. Yeah, which goes to fuel some of those conspiracy theories when it comes to Epstein basically taking himself out as well. Yeah, in these emails, he most definitely pointed the finger at Trump, called him a madman, basically said that he was suffering from the early stages of dementia. And with the last one we just seen, where he just said Trump most definitely knew about the girls. Wow.
Trump's story on that has changed, and that is getting new scrutiny right now. There is also how the Trump DOJ has dealt with Maxwell and her controversial interview with a former Trump defense lawyer who now is paid by your tax dollars to do the people's business at the Trump DOJ. But it looks like Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche may not have been doing the people's business. We'll get to that. But in this exchange from 2011, Epstein wrote to Maxwell, Trump was spending, quote, hours at his house with one of the victims. Maxwell said she's been thinking about that, as they said that Trump was the dog that didn't bark. That matters for many reasons, but specifically whether Deputy Attorney General Blanche is worried about later professional sanctions or misconduct, or even potentially being disbarred if this is part of a larger cover-up. It obviously contradicts what Maxwell apparently falsely claimed with no repercussions yet.
No.
when she had her coach-
It is the victims have spoken out, and they said they want the files unsealed. They said that Trump and them is saying that, and the government is saying that they are basically keeping those files sealed in the victim's name, like edited out for the victims, saying that that's what the victims want. But the victims did a whole press conference where they said that they want the documents released, and that you don't have to redact their names, because they have came out now publicly with their real names and began to speak out against what's going on. So they don't mind their names being in the files, and they most definitely are looking to unseal those files. Yeah, if you don't believe me, go look at some of my other videos on this situation when it comes to the Epstein files and the victims, and you will most definitely see a press conference where they address that situation with the sealed documents and their names being redacted. They most definitely said they don't care about their names being known, because some of them can't remember everything that happened, so they would love to have those files so they can look back and see exactly the statements that were made by them and others about what took place with Epstein, guys.
Was the interview with Deputy Attorney General Blanche just months ago.
I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance.
Absolutely fearless, redacted.
Something she suddenly says she didn't recall when the emails say she did.
I believe what the victims say. And understand that I don't just watch MSNBC. You know, we watch all news that reports on this situation, as well as some research I've done on my own. So don't come in here at the last minute saying you believe what MSNBC says, because that's what you see on the screen right now. Anybody that's been in here for the last hour, 2 hours, most definitely knows we have went to a couple of news stations, you know, in order to get information on this whole situation.
If the Trump DOJ were on the level, and this is now public, at a minimum, they would go deal with this with her. At a maximum, remember, even when you're in prison, if you mislead the federal government, if you provide false statements to a federal officer, that could be a new crime. And yet they're not obviously doing anything like that. They're giving her special treatment and a puppy in prison, and we'll get to that. Blanche says that for some reason, quote, law enforcement didn't have those emails when he did the interview. As I've reported to you, he said, when I interviewed Maxwell, quote, law enforcement didn't have the materials. Epstein's estate, quote, hid for years and only provided to Congress. That statement is highly suspicious, and it is now getting debunked by the Epstein estate, which says we hadn't received any requests from DOJ in recent years, emphasis on recent years, I'll come back to that, but they say, and these are the ones who have been lately more transparent, of course, working for the Epstein estate sounds controversial, but Epstein's dead. These are the people who manage the estate. These are lawyers who have their own obligations. They are the ones who provided these emails. So they might have more credibility than Mr. Blanche right now. And they say tonight it's inaccurate for Blanche and Trump DOJ to assert the estate has hidden anything. And let me tell you a bit more about that. You might say, okay, Ari, with everything going on, why are we diving into a debate between anonymous lawyers or random obscure lawyers at the Epstein estate and the Deputy Attorney General? Well, the Deputy Attorney General is responding because he's under pressure. The interview, many legal experts have said, looked suspicious at the time. Now it looks like outright cover-up, potential misconduct. And so he says law enforcement didn't have the materials. He tries to go after the Epstein estate. Maybe he didn't realize they would come back at him. They're saying his whole defense that they hid anything is wrong, is inaccurate. Another word for that would be a lie if they think he knows that it's inaccurate. But more to the point, they didn't use the underlying original nonpartisan career prosecutors who led the Maxwell case. That was suspicious. I pointed that out at the time. Those prosecutors probably know everything that they requested, including the first step you take in this kind of probe, which is to try to get emails and texts, and you go to the telecommunications providers. You don't even need to get them from Epstein. We would know more about that if the Trump DOJ was on the level. And then remember, on top of that, they then fired the person who actually won Maxwell's conviction, Maureen Comey. So there's a lot more smoke here and a lot more questions, and a real investigation can get to the bottom of it. Now, you might say, are we going to get to the bottom of anything? Seems like a lot of secrecy and a lot of corruption these days. Well, you're right if you think that. And there are a lot of places where Congress doesn't do anything, and a lot of places where Republicans won't stand up to Donald Trump. That is a well-known pattern. And yet here we are ending this bruising week for Trump with an unusual headline. Republicans revolting. Congress, which is controlled by Republicans, will actually hold this vote next week on releasing more of the Epstein files.
Next week.
Epstein accusers imploring lawmakers to vote yes. That's part of the public pressure.
But it's coming up.
You're right. There's no hiding behind party
Tuesday.
affiliation. When you vote, we will remember your decision at the ballot box. And there has certainly been a nonpartisan or transpartisan movement with growing heat to get to the bottom of this. Trump is trying to deflect. He made an announcement today that itself is illicit and suspicious. He now says he wants the DOJ to investigate whether there were other crimes or Epstein's relationship with Bill Clinton and other figures, and he names the bank, JP Morgan, tech entrepreneur Reid Hoffman, and others. Now just think about that. I know we live in cynical times, but if this government, from the president on down, thinks there was sex trafficking with any of those people, or JP Morgan, which of course was very controversial in how it handled Epstein's banking, just think about what Trump just admitted, that they haven't really pursued that. This is his DOJ. He was in charge in the first term. They could have looked at all of that. That's when the initial Epstein case came. He's been in charge now, as you know, for this year. And yet, that announcement, if you take it at its word, admits they haven't done it, and there may be crimes, and now they want to do it. That implicates Donald Trump, if you take him at his word. If you don't take him at his word, and you think this is a giant distraction, an effort to use the real crimes and victims and sex trafficking that did occur in a politicized way to go after other people and distract himself, well, that's even more disgusting and cynical. And if you know this program, I don't use those words often or lightly, but it is indeed disgusting. If you have an oath to uphold the Constitution and enforce the laws, and here you are abusing and misusing that responsibility to play political games, and your pawns or chess pieces in that are the women and girls who actually were the victims of these crimes, we do need to maintain our capacity both for outrage when it's warranted and a vigorous search for the truth, which is what the justice system is supposed to do. This is how it goes when Trump talks to reporters about this.
Mr. President, can you respond to these Epstein emails that were released today?
President Trump walked past reporters yesterday, as you see here, as they were asking him questions about the newly released Epstein emails.
Mr. President, any comment on these Epstein emails, sir?
Now, not a lot of response from a normally voluble figure there. The conservative Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, says, as is so often the case, Trump has been his own worst enemy here. He looks like he has something to hide, even if he doesn't. Now, let me tell you a word about that even if. Even if he doesn't have something to hide is charitable. But he does have something to hide. He's in the Epstein files. He's in Epstein's secret emails to a convicted sex trafficker, Maxwell, to Steve Bannon. People are getting more details on those as everyone pours through what is 20,000 documents. Some of them are quite interesting. Some of them are random. Some of them, the House release involves public information like pages from a book. So you go through all this in a reporting process, but he clearly has something to hide because he's been fighting even this disclosure, which shows he's in the files. And he's fighting the next possible disclosure, which suggests he's in the files again. As for Maxwell, she has the audacity or the sex trafficking chutzpah to use this period to prepare to ask Trump to let her out of prison. Something that would seem unthinkable unless you think, again, he would rather take the hit for that to maintain her as some sort of non-credible source to defend him. Unlike other prisoners, Maxwell already reportedly gets unlimited supplies, special treatment, quote, customized meals personally delivered to her cell, a private exercise area, access to this much maligned service puppy. She says it's safer and more comfortable. I feel like I've dropped through Alice in Wonderland Looking Glass. I'm much happier and safe, is her statement on the matter. Trump said he would not rule out freeing her. Think about that. He's on the run. He's in the files. And now, having campaigned on both transparency of releasing the files and justice and saying this whole pedophilia ring was a bad thing, he is now still leaving the door open to freeing from prison the only individual ever incarcerated for Epstein's related crimes. Now, we've heard so many lectures about how nothing changes and Trump has loyalty and he likes to tell people he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Well, that may not be true either. There are some problems, legal and otherwise, that Trump's base has excused. But right now, I showed you the Wall Street Journal, I showed you the Republicans in the House who overrode Trump's strategy here of secrecy, and other members of the MAGA base are upset. Newsweek reports on the threat to the Trump presidency now looks unlike anything we've seen before, and over across the whole country, his approval is cratering MAGA loyalists concerned.
Across the Republican Party, there are calls for more disclosure.
The government will not protect the predators.
There is just nobody in the electorate who is buying this. Trump could one-up him and say, well, Johnson wants to have the vote Wednesday. I want to release the Epstein files Tuesday. And he could literally be a hero.
I think it's a huge miscalculation.
He's alienated a lot of his base with his statement that you're no longer my supporter and you never were if this is what you're for.
Imagine what's going to continue to happen when you learn even more damning information. Trump continues his spiral, his cynical announcements, which may not be playing very well, and then you actually might get a vote to release the files.
All right. So, you know, whether you're for Trump, against Trump, whichever way it may be, it most definitely is looking crazy with Trump not wanting to release these files, guys. Yeah, they say it's even if they pass it, it's up to Trump to sign it. And I would say 95% of people think that he will not sign it, you know, for them to be able to release those files to the public. So it's looking bleak, guys. When it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said in her own words that she feels like Trump is basically removing his support of her because she supports the releasing of the Epstein files, guys. That's what we got from the majority of the channels that we watched today. If you haven't, double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button if you're on a mobile device, or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. It most definitely helps out the channel, guys. That's all I got for y'all right now in this situation. I most definitely presented to y'all as much information as possible, you know. So if you just got here, make sure you subscribe. Feel free to run it back and get caught all the way up as we gear up for this vote that's supposed to be happening on Tuesday to see if we will get all of the files, guys. And most of America is saying release the Epstein files. They want them, including the victims are saying release the Epstein files, guys. All right. So with that being said, shout out to everybody that subscribed to the channel, my old subscribers as well as the new ones. Shout out to all my members, and most definitely shout out to all of my moderators. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for keeping this chat running smooth. And with that being said, y'all already know it's time for me to make my grand exit. So I will see y'all later. Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Presumably tomorrow morning I will be live again. So if you like what you seen today, make sure you pull up on me tomorrow morning around 9 or 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, y'all. Y'all be good out there. I'm gone.